Welcome back to the home studio. Welcome to episode 75 of the Stevie Richards Show. This episode is a follow-up or a complement to episode 74, where we continue the debate of wrestling. Is it good? Is it bad in 2025? Is modern wrestler better or worse than in the past? We're going to take a deep dive. We're going to read some of your comments that say, yes, modern wrestling is better than past eras. And we will answer the question. James put an I. We should put it we. Not was I too harsh on modern wrestling, but here's my co-host, James Romero, who egged me on every bit of the way last week.
Don't you give me that. I think people blame me for turning you to the dark side of complaining about wrestling like Jim Cornette or someone. But you talked to Maven a few days ago on Rene Dupree's podcast about YouTube, and it's a business and you have to make content that people want. Now, we very much want to do more positive stuff. And then guess what happens when we do more positive stuff? No one watches. Like with the example was great with AJ Styles, Dragon Lee, who the tag team name should be AJ Lee, doing maybe the best finisher of 2025, which, yes, we know it was a Young Bucks thing that they did in PWG that no one was watching, but who cares? This was done in WWE with a lot more people watching, and it was a great finish, and it doesn't matter who came up with it first. Like, what, 12, 13,000 people watched it?
Yeah,
and
there's
then
a lot of things
something about Jey Uso.
And there's always things that we bring to each other, more so, I'm not throwing you under, but I'm just saying I bring it to you as saying, man, this would be, it would be cool, but in a positive way. Oh, this would be fun. Or like when I way back episode 16, I think I did the fundamentals of wrestling or a wrestling match or the basics of professional wrestling. And it was probably our worst performing episode ever. So it's not what we want to do. Of course, baked in where episode 74, what went wrongs and all that stuff, we're very measured, objective. And also we don't just say, this stinks, this sucks, this is awful, this person is bad. We give solutions to it or give comparisons and ways to tweak that. Even what went right, there's things within there. I would back up and say, even within what went wrong, what did we say during that Dominic Mysterio John Cena, the overbooked finish? They are using Raquel Rodriguez exactly right in that scheme, the Diesel Diesel footprint with the big boot. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do that. My goal and my mission statement when I started the analysis channel and then ours were to really educate the fans, show them the product, show them the nuance and the detail of everything, but of course, honor professional wrestling. We have lots of episodes on Bret Hart. We were going to do a part 2 on Roddy Piper, hopefully next week, unless it all changes, which it can. But that's the fun part. I never had more fun doing this show than especially when we're doing career and life retrospectives on people like Bret, Roddy, and everybody else in between.
Yeah, I know you don't enjoy doing the TNA shows because that. Or Right to Censor, that time. And then opening up all wounds.
Well, no, that's a part of it. But you know what? It's great in a way because addressing it, even especially over two decades, Philly accent, 2 decades later. How's that? Is that even a word? But yeah, you're not going to cut that out. I know, Chris.
Oh, I know.
But I know you're writing it down. Don't cut it out. But it's awesome to be able to look back with the perspective that at the time I still kind of had internally, but it's still something that needed to be addressed. And I think those early episodes of doing that, especially the Right to Censor ones, I think a lot of people stuck with the show after that because, much like with Maven, honesty, transparency, vulnerability. I'm not the hero of every story, which a lot of wrestling shows and a lot of wrestlers tend to do.
You can't say this. This is something completely... everyone else can. I'm going to zoom in. What do you think of the new ECW champion?
I can't quite see it. I can't quite see it.
I can't quite zoom into it, but it's that Mario character for whatever reason. The shy guy.
Is that the one with the barbed wire cage or the cage center plate?
It's the classic one, the 97 to, I guess, 2007, actually, because they used that on the first WWE ECW shows as well.
No, the
The classic
classic one, if
ECW
you want to
belts.
talk classic, the classic one is the
Oh yeah.
Eastern Championship Wrestling one that Shane had, where he threw the NWA belt down and then made it Extreme Championship Wrestling.
I think there were two versions of that because I think the center plate where it had ECW on it was blue at one point and then red at other points. So I think there were two different versions of it. I think.
Yeah, well, the first one was Eastern Championship Wrestling, kind of had a Pennsylvania or some kind of like the tri-state area type of thing in the center, and then it changed. You know, that's an excellent question. I was right next to Raven, and I defended the title once against Santa, and I forget what the belt looks like, but the red is the ECW red on the Extreme version, correct?
I'd have to get it. On the Extreme version, when it changed, oh, that's a good question. I just remember the 93 version that Shane had and Terry Funk had. So I think people forget that Terry Funk was ECW champion in 93 as well.
Yeah,
but that might have been one of the phantom title changes.
Sabu and Shane had the night to cross the line, the three-way match between them. Did they go an hour in that?
Yeah.
I can remember.
Yeah, because they tried to recreate that at Hardcore Homecoming in 2005, I believe, as well.
Oh, that's a tough one, especially as the attention span started to go down and down and down, or shorter and shorter through time.
I'm looking at who Terry Funk beat for the title. I'm not convinced it was that. So Terry Funk lost the belt in Ultimate Jeopardy. And then, but he defeated Sabu, we think. Oh yeah, no, it did. I'm trying to think who had the Phantom title change.
Phantom title change or something that wasn't supposed to happen between
I think
Sabu
it was Tito and Shane, maybe? Maybe, because Tito just was done. He didn't want to wrestle there anymore or something. And then Shane just, I think, claimed he won it. I'd have to find that out.
Yeah, I want to reach out to Shane again, too, and apologize for stealing his show. We're 75 in, Shane. We're honoring your legacy the best way we know how.
Oh, well, you know, Shane's kicked up his... You know, I gave Shane the old Shane Douglas channel.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kicking up again. They're doing more content there.
Oh, cool. I have to
That's
check
good.
it out. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Franchise
Shane Douglas
University.
Official.
Oh, it's Shane Douglas Official now. Official.
Yeah. So they're not doing podcasts. They're just doing like a clip a day kind of thing. So, which is easy enough as it goes. So yeah, it's just Shane Douglas Official on YouTube. So hunt it out. I'm no longer affiliated, but I guess I'm the unpaid consultant for it now on occasion. That I'll give my advice. So,
if I could do one more plug before you go into our plugs, please check out Cafe de Rene Dupre, man, Philly accent already. Maven and I were on there, but he's had a lot of people on. I think he's going to have Ken Kennedy on next week, which I told him to relay the message that I still refuse to put him over in 2025. Mm-hmm. He should laugh about that.
So we'll do our plugs then. Mine first, List Mania Wrestling is out. That's one of my YouTube channels, one of my various ones, where I do deep dives and lists and all that kind of thing. It's the thing we put in the most effort in, so we hope to build it up as best we can. There's my channel, James Romero, which I posted something on Travis Scott, and that's done so well that Stevie and I are going to be talking about it today as well, based purely on that performance. And also for Stevie, we have Stevie Richards Fitness, which Stevie was very pleased. He was telling me that there's definitely an uptick on. It seems that the lower the effort, the more views, unfortunately, going, because you're just reviewing stuff or reacting to like legal stuff within the fitness world, and more people are interested in that. So you're going to go headfirst into that kind of content as well. What's coming up?
Right now, I actually had ChatGPT write my workout and diet program, and I actually did an unbelievably good job, which is very, very scary. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out different news things. I actually did a James Romero. I should call myself Stevie Romero and rebrand the channel. But I have all these topics that are James Romero kind of inspired, including Lyle Alzado. Did steroids kill him or not? Because there's a lot of different ways that the media kind of twisted that a little bit. Talk about the WWF steroid scandal, talk about other kind of fitness stuff, but more controversial. And I tried to do it like the Y-Files, a mix between that and Oompaville, two of my favorite channels. It's hard for me to read off a script. So I'm trying to kind of read the script over and over again, and then trying to kind of get bullet points, but then kind of put my own voice to it without meandering on forever. It's a very, very thin line to do that. You're an expert.
Well, you know what I do, don't you? I pretty much, it depends on whatever. Sometimes I'll do bullet points. Sometimes I'll write out the entire script, and then I would just refer to it from time to time. but I've only just written it. I don't read it through at all. I just write it and then just hope I remember as much as I can, and then fill in the rest.
My thing is, with me, it's just kind of like I would love to have a more professional presentation or anything, but it always comes off very wooden. And like, that's kind of why, if you want to talk about it, it's a great segue in a way. We'll go to the Cameo and Patreon next, but put a pin in this. It's kind of like I was part of the era that didn't require a script, that they did give you bullet points, not even on a piece of paper. And I had a lot of trouble. Like when they started handing me scripts word for word, there were some of my worst promos ever because I needed to do it word for word. It was incredibly difficult. Referring it, using it as reference is one thing. I would do that too, even hold a piece of paper and say, this is what we have here, and then B-roll and talking. But to go straight down the script and read it and sound natural, I don't think I could ever do that.
No, I struggled doing the Listmania stuff as well. I think I'm a bit better at it now, but reading scripts is really difficult. To, throw in natural inflections and stuff.
Do you think I should do more like a podcast type thing? I was thinking about two cameras. Like if you ever watch Area 52, one of my other favorite channels, he does a debrief. It's really awesome. He'll talk to the camera. Then when he looks off to the side, it's kind of like breaking the fourth wall in a way and adding his commentary. So this is like talking about the story. This is kind of giving his thoughts and kind of like ad-libbing a little bit. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, actually, that's what CoffeeZilla does as well. But on like the well-produced stuff, not the Voidzilla stuff.
Doing much better.
I know. Do you know what's funny? That's why I got a black screen originally. A pull-up one, because I thought I could do that.
You could do James
but then I had to go with the. Then I had to do the short version of it because it was the only one that would fit inside. Because I've got a sofa in my office. It's the only one that would fit under the sofa. Because you can get another one that's wider, but it's like 8 feet. And I thought, I'll just use that. That'll differentiate slightly. And then afterwards, like the last couple of weeks, I can't even be bothered setting that up, man. So I just turned the lights off behind me. It's good enough. But weirdly enough, that's kind of why I started doing a separate channel. Was because his channel started doing so well with as low effort content, mostly, on his secondary channel than the really high end content was doing on his main channel. So I thought, damn, I could have a go.
Now, low effort doesn't mean lack of research, lack of effort. I mean, it just means that low production in a way. One camera, decent lighting, and you just kind of go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of decent lighting and cameras and such, we still haven't done all the plugs, and we always have to mention Cameo. The Stevie Richards Cameo, once again, doing gangbusters as it always does. And there is time for Christmas as well. If you get your order in quick with Stevie Richards, you can get a cameo from the man himself. Once again, his prices are way too cheap. He's got 5 stars across the board, and once again, the reason is because he gives you more than your money's worth. Please go to the Stevie Richards cameo. And most importantly of all, of course, there is the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. What do we watch that aired this Monday just gone, and what are we watching this Monday coming up?
Well, I'm becoming more and more like you because I forget what we watched last Monday, so let's just go forward and talk about this Monday. Going along, you're looking it up right now. Episode 75 talks about the good things about modern wrestling. I think one of the best things in modern wrestling, or one of the best finishes to WrestleMania, maybe in its entire history, was WrestleMania 40. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, with a lot of people coming in for cameos, run-ins, and definitely a 2-year story finishing. And we even talked about Cody getting the belt back and Cody still being a strong babyface champion. We're going to note that in this episode as well. So it was pretty much the last 15, 20 minutes of the WrestleMania 40 main event, Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it more the second time watching it. Because I don't know what it was. Yeah, it was the director's cut. It's on YouTube now. It's really interesting how many shots of Michelle McCool they slipped in there for no good reason. More than 0 was egregious, and they slipped in 1 for some reason. But there you go. Right. Better or worse in 2025 pro wrestling. So last week we did a very purposely contentious show called Modern Wrestling Sucks. That was built off a clip that we did the week before where we thought, might as well just do a full episode on it and just do an episode of complaining. And it went over very well with the views and most people who watched that as well, I believe. So this time we thought we'd do a tiny bit more measured in how we're going to go about it, because Stevie really enjoyed the Jey Uso segment where I would put forth my opinion on him, I would be the prosecutor, Stevie would be the defense, basically. So we thought, instead of doing just a straight part 2 of Modern Wrestling Sucks, we would be, were you one too harsh, Stevie, on modern wrestling, and also arguments for and against pro wrestling in 3 different major categories. So we're going to do that now. And the first one, and maybe the thing I guess we're both most passionate about, I guess collectively, is production. And we're going to mostly stick with WWE, but AEW and everything else as well, of course. Arguments for and arguments against. Is the production of WWE and beyond better or worse in 2025 compared to your favourite era, whatever it might be, the early 2000s, the late 90s, the 1980s, whatever it might be? So, arguments for, Stevie, would you like to take it away?
Oh, wow. Arguments for. I mean, that list can be very long, and that's a very tough comparison to start with. We're talking about many eras, but we can talk about the modern era. WWE has always been either on the cusp or ahead of the curve when it comes to production. If you wanted to kind of describe WWF, WWE, Vince McMahon, Triple H, TKO, whatever era, any version of WWF or WWE that I grew up with or know as an adult and almost a senior citizen now, I would say this. They do not skimp. They do not cut corners. They do not cut a budget according to production. If anything, they are just out of this world. I mean, I almost see, I'm a tech nerd or tech geek. I can't even say it. My goodness, my Philly accent's in full effect early in the episode. I would say this. I'm somebody that tries to stay on top of everything tech related, especially production related, audio, video wise, lighting, all this stuff. Most times when I see something on WWE, I'm like, where did that come from? Where did this camera angle come from? How are they using a hologram? How are they using the tech? Then I got to reverse engineer it and see who else is using it, where it came from. They are so far ahead of the curve. There's nobody, dare I say it, maybe even in sports, because NFL took everything from XFL back in the day, the Skycam, all the different kinds of production and presentation, which Skycam way back in the day wasn't even a thing. I don't know who came up with it, but for Vince to put that in there actually completely not only changed the XFL, but changed the NFL today, right now. So I'd have to say if WWE could present an 8 or 12K presentation, if they could make it, I don't know, everybody have just insane production value, they would do it. I can't describe it, and that's probably the best way to describe it. I can't describe it, but I always find something new. I always see an upgrade. They're never resting on their laurels as far as the set, the production, the lighting, the audio, the video, any of that stuff. Now, you can argue also, and we'll take it back to you, that maybe during the Brett Owen era or even the 80s, the color saturation, the color schemes, all that stuff, we might lean a little bit towards that. But I have to say, they knock it out of the park when it comes to presentation.
I realised when I threw it to you, you may not have the format in front of you to read from. Do you?
I do now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Right, so I'll give you some arguments for. So A+ presentation standard, I think, that it rivals the biggest sports in the world. I mean, WWE's production's amazing and the coverage and everything. Interviews in the crowd. Now, that's something they brought back for the Netflix debut for WWE Raw and stood out to me. I believe it stood out to you as well.
Yeah, it was like what's old is new again, because that would be a weekly thing, even with Vince and Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, whatever commentary team would be there. And obviously, most times it would be a green screen behind them, but they blended it in so well. I remember when they did it during SmackDown, I believe, Kid Cash gave the brainbuster to Funaki on that platform where they used to do it famously. This is where Million Dollar Man kicked the basketball out from under the kid that had to bounce it 10 times. Those platform interviews with the crowd behind you were so incredibly powerful. And when they brought it back for that Kid Cash thing for a little bit way back, that's almost 20 years now. And now I remember what stuck out to me more than anything, and it might be why they stopped doing it, how over with the crowd Karrion Kross was when they were right behind him and he could address those people behind him. And I think that's the last time they really did it. I think LA Knight was after that once.
Yeah,
They
I
did
think
that.
it's been a little later than that, but they're not doing it as much as they were, which is a big shame. Do you know who else did? You know the big raised blue platform, as you were saying with Ted DiBiase and stuff. Do you know who did that briefly? I think last year, and they don't really do it very much anymore. AEW. I remember specifically when I guess it was Renee Paquette was interviewing Will Ospreay, and it was the famous, or some might say infamous, promo he gave where he started addressing Triple H in it, because there was some quote on the internet or wherever it was saying, Will couldn't hack the WWE. And then anyway, they did that same shot where the entire crowd was behind him. And I think the reason they don't do it anymore, and this isn't meant to mock, is because they didn't have the crowds to then have as a backdrop, because the attendance kept dropping. So they've given up on that shot. But I think, one, if the attendance came back up regularly, that would be a great thing for AEW to have as a backdrop as the audience, but position it where the old blue stand used to be on the old Superstars tapings. I love that camera angle.
Yeah, you would think that they would do that a lot more often, especially since on the entrances, we have a lot of interaction, a lot of sing alongs, a lot of people doing everything with the entrances. You figured that the fans will be even rowdier and louder. And maybe that might be another reason why they don't do it. It's not in a controlled environment to be able to do the promo. But to me, that's something that they did back in the 80s on a weekly basis. And now I wish they did it at least once a month or with special circumstances. Hey, how about angles? How about the fact that you could have, just for example, like I said, I really do like it. I wish they would bring it back more. How much would it mean if there was something out there that Bronson Reed could have gave the tsunami splash to LA Knight from the crowd on top of a car, on top of the production thing or whatever, and leave with that, with the crowd behind them to go home from there, rather than all the way back in the loading dock area.
More pluses. This is something. Have they stopped doing this now, where they have the unbroken shot with a wrestler from the back, for example, walking through the curtain, then all the way, and then the camera walks around the ring? No cuts for like a minute and a half or something. Do they still do that? Because I just don't remember them doing that for a while.
I don't remember them doing it recently. Was Punk, and my memory might not serve me correctly, was Punk the last person that did that? Or there was a couple, Jey Uso fan, that's what really got him over a couple times. He was in the concourse, walk through, and then sometimes he would walk through up and through Gorilla, but most times he was the one in the concourse. That's what really started to get him over with the people, because he was getting people warmed up, music hits, and goes out through the crowd. I'm trying to think, but man, to me, that's the big fight feel type thing. That's kind of like when WWE also, if you want to talk about the backstage stuff, I love that hum they used to do on the walk, like Austin used to do it when he came out for WrestleMania. What's that? Yeah,
Yeah, they just have that like heartbeat.
Yeah, that was his
pulsating,
WrestleMania in Boston where he won the title from Shawn Michaels, Mike Tyson being the referee. It just had that more anticipation in the moment of this. And then it's such a low hum. And then the glass breaks and everything just jacks up to 100 right there. Who did it really well that I really liked? TNA created like warm up pre-entrance versions of everybody's music, like AJ, Joe, Kurt, and had them backstage walking to Gorilla. And then they would hit the music. It wouldn't be an unbroken chain, but then they hit the music and then person would come out. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the entrances these days? Because they've got like two different versions. Because depending on how many seats they sell for the television tapings, of course. But I really loved it when they were selling out so many times that they had this like shrunk down version of the Raw set, which I think was the best one since. Do you remember in 2008? And then they went HD, and then they used that same set for like 5 years for every single show, regardless if it was a pay-per-view or TV, and it just sucked the life out of, I think, the show to a point. But I mean, where does the modern sets rank for you as far as compared to the old ones, specifically with WWE?
Well, yeah, I think the initial, like maybe beta test of that was WrestleMania in the Meadowlands, where they debuted that huge, like, what was it, like a 32K or a 64K screen? Remember the really, it stretched across the entire stage. This is a miniature version of that, and I really do like it. I like the fact that we don't have the big ramp anymore. We don't have other thing. It just feels like when somebody, and this was an ECW thing when they brought it back to WWE, we loved the fact that when we had our entrance, we were walking through a sea of people. Now it was not quite protected either, but now you have the wrestlers walking through kind of a sea of people, especially in stadium shows. When you have them, there's people all around, and it just looks like it reminds me of the old Saturday Night Main Events where Hogan would come out and down the aisle, but people would be kind of reaching over and it would be just a very, very organic experience. What do I like personally? See, that's where I want to be objective with it. My favorite of all time was the old WWF one, the arches here, and when they added that squared Titantron with the cubes, and say Brett would come out and they would load each cube up with the Titantron until it filled up. That was super cool.
If we're going on the older school entrances, I love the one in WrestleMania 8. It debuted WrestleMania 8 where it was the neon arches and the neon, oh, and then the logo in the middle, and they used that for like Wrestling Challenge and stuff for years. I love that one. But it's kind of tough to rank really, because like as technology improves over time, it seems that WWE, as you said, always trying to be at the forefront. And at times that's really sucked the soul out of the entrance sets by just going too heavy on the technology. Trying to just like stay on the zeitgeist. Like with the HD thing, terrible. But then modern entrance is pretty good. But I'm trying to think, nothing beats the Nitro set, the classic Nitro set for me. Had that right mix. And I know we've talked about this before.
Well,
But
I would say I would argue with that a little bit, but because of the Nitro set, I think this forced WWF at the time during the Attitude Era to change the Titantron. That's where the Titantron was born. You remember there was no ramp, there was no nothing. We had the arches and all that stuff. Then all of a sudden we have this big industrial ramp. We have this big screen, and now we get to see like in widescreen, and we have box trusses. It's very industrial. So they were probably taking a cue from WCW Nitro. But man, it just, and also just the subdued nature of just the black curtain. The black curtain, somebody comes out and they kind of like zoom back and you see the Titantron. One of the film most famous entrances I remember was Baltimore and Siragusa, one of the Baltimore Ravens was in the crowd. And he's like, I just remember this because it was like on YouTube, it said Steve Austin, like, I don't know what kind of pop it was, but like the loudest pop ever or enormous pop. And they had the football players there in the front row. The glass broke. Everybody went nuts. And they had the long shot of the Titantron. And you just see through the black curtain this big jack dude coming through, Steve Austin. And he just had such a, like, I don't know. It was like an entrance in a movie. That's what it reminded me of.
yeah, just pure magic, wasn't it, with Steve Austin?
But they could have. Here's an interesting theory, or just a guess or a speculation on my part. Do you think that 5 year stretch where they pretty much used the same exact entrance, that there was no thing from the network or the licensing fees that said you need to update the set or do this or do that every year, every 2 years? Because right now it feels like every year they do major upgrades. Do you think that's in relation to like Netflix back in the day, Fox using like the big, they used the end zone cameras that were the super high quality, like 8K, looked like a video game.
Hmm.
Those entrances stood out as well.
Do you think it was just because they kept that HD set for so long because it probably cost them so much? So they think, well, we've got to get everything we can out of this.
Well, I mean, this has cost them a ton of money too. Also, do you think now that we have holograms and we have the screen and we have technology and LED aprons, LED ring posts, that now they can upgrade it and we're thinking they're upgraded it, but it's the same technology just with
Hmm.
different
Just more of it.
implementation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, can you imagine with hologram wrestlers coming out? Here he is, the return you've all been begging for, Giant Haystacks.
Are we that far off from AI wrestlers?
No, that's the worry. Which one is it? Which is is it Haystacks Calhoun? That's the American one, isn't it? I always mix those two up.
Yeah, I think it's Haystacks because you guys had a British version of Haystacks over there,
Yeah, that
right?
was Giant Haystacks, who ended up working as Loch Ness briefly in
Oh,
WCW.
really?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
Giant Haystacks, yeah.
I always mix Loch Ness up with Roadblock, which we're going to look at that later with Luger and Roadblock.
Yeah. So, was it Roadblock the guy who got into the business by doing a legitimate run-in on a Hulk Hogan match because he thought he was real?
No, I never heard that.
I think that's the story. Or it's T. Ranchula. He was just like an indie guy
I
who worked for
wrestled
years.
T Ranchula out in Pittsburgh. We've
There you
had a
go.
few matches out that way. Was it T Ranchula? I would have known that if it was T Ranchula.
Yeah, no, I think it's Roadblock. He's the guy who did a shoot run-in, to save Hulk Hogan, and to stop him from doing it again, they trained him, or put him in touch with somebody to train him. I think that's the story.
Don't try this at home, or don't try this at shows, kids. How's that?
How do you think the audio has differed over the years? Ring miking up, because also, is it me, or can you hear more of what the wrestlers are saying to each other during matches these days?
They're definitely improving the quality of the audio on the cameras. I really do believe they're doing that. They do have to capture stuff for these documentaries, for the more cinematic stuff. I have no doubt they're putting it in there, but live, you're going to catch some of that stuff. I'll say the audio, just like video, it's always going to improve. But when they try to control the crowd reactions and they try to use DJ Jazzy Def, as I call them, and pump in stuff, or right now taking out audio, like I noticed on Monday, they were muting out the word sucks on Raw. When Heyman and them were out there, they were saying something like Logan Paul sucks or whatever, and they were muting it, and it just over and over disconnect. You know what I mean? You're not feeling it. But overall, I mean, you look at video, you're going to talk about some of the color saturations and presentation, but they do not take any steps back when it comes to technology. We have to give them credit for that. I mean, WWE for a time too, and I didn't know if this was going to be as big as they thought it was going to be, but I am so shocked that the 360 implementation they did for a couple of years, and also not diving into VR more, or augmented reality, they seem to dip their toe here and there, but don't really kind of go in with both feet forward.
This one's a contentious one. Right, okay, on this list, so everyone knows, I've also put some booking stuff. I'm going to scratch all of that because this is production purely and I shouldn't have put that in. But one thing I've written down, I want your opinion on this, is, when there is a title match, and it doesn't matter what belt it is, they darken the lights, they have one single shot camera, they have it on Alicia Taylor, who's, doing her announcing, and the challenger, etc. Bringing them out, then the champion and everything. Once again, it's, whatever lens they use, and they, nicely blur the background so it looks very cinematic, and it's an unbroken shot once again. Do you like that, one, and does it make a title match feel more special? And two, should that be implemented for every title match, for every title?
Well, that last question is very interesting. I'll get to that. I do like it. I do like the big fight feel. I like the only thing missing, and I wish just my 54-year-old heart and soul, I wish that they would bring down the old kind of Madison Square Garden one to really do it right and give that historic, nostalgic big fight feel. Anything they do, if I was in a world title match, then the company would go out of business. But if I was in a world title match, I would want everything to stand out, that this is special, that this is different than all the other ones. So with that being said, to segue into the answer of the last question, no. Strictly just if now there's two world champions, the world heavyweight title matches are the only ones that need to do that. Now, there could be something like coming up on Saturday night's main event. We're going to review the show. John Cena's last match, that's an exception. That's a special event. That's a special match. I believe that should take on that presentation. And if that's taking on the presentation and there's a world title match on the same show, you can't have two world titles is enough, but don't do it two, three, four times during the same show because nothing's special.
Some arguments against now. Production and lighting, are they too polished, too clean?
Well, isn't that everything? Like you watch the old NFL, and now it's weird because there was a time where I said with the old NFL, it's like, man, that's what I really missed when I was growing up and everything. Now, when I'm watching current NFL, I'm like, I don't have to look for stats or do any. They're feeding me all this information. It's moving. The commentators are telling a story, and just the sights and the sounds are so clean that I feel like I'm in the game. And I don't know if wrestling does that, but that I feel like is their intention, that it's so polished, so clean, almost like a soap opera, almost like you're shooting it in like 60 or 120 hertz, super smooth motion. I like it. I personally like it. But then there's a part of me when I watch Roddy versus Brett or Brett versus Owen at WrestleMania 10, and I'm like, I kind of miss that too. I don't know if there's a happy medium in there, but I feel like I'd rather you try too hard and kind of peel it back a little bit than, like you said, keep the same set for 5 years, same presentation, and not try to improve the product.
Is there any difference between like a hard hit in the NFL with, these 8K cameras shooting him and a hard hit in pro wrestling? Does it somehow, let's say the exact same technology is implemented, but does it somehow sanitize the pro wrestling violence more than it might do on the gridiron, for example?
That's super interesting because another thing about the way they shoot it, and you talked about the sights, and that they have a sound effect show for the NFL Network. So that's how important the sound is to them. Somehow, when we watched the director's cut of WrestleMania 40, kind of showed this. When you're doing that with those really great cameras or it's cinematic, the movement and the speed of the game seems almost incomprehensible. Like, how did these guys move this fast? How did that guy get up from that hit? Because the hit has such velocity and impact. And plus, you're wearing pads, so it's going to make like that Gunther chop sound when you hit somebody. But in wrestling, outside of that director's cut with Roman and Cody, they don't make it look like it's so sped up or hard to do. But did you notice on the overhead thing? Like when Roman swung and then Cody did the thing, I was like, man, those guys are moving. That's the first time I felt that way watching anything that WWE produced. Usually WWE and wrestling in general, they love 60 and 120 frames per second. They love super slow motion, which is great in cinematic, but super sped up stuff makes it look like it came out of nowhere. And NFL definitely has the sweet spot or the secret sauce compared to wrestling. I mean, what you watch European football, right?
Yeah, nowhere near as much as I used to, but yeah.
What have you ever seen anything that makes the game look like impossibly fast, like NFL, like when they're shooting it?
I think it's probably that's a tough one because there isn't much of camera changing. It's mostly a static camera in the center. It's one hard cam for the most of the game. The camera changes aren't every 1.5 seconds.
They never have like a close up of like a slide tackle or somebody.
Yeah, of course you do in the replays. Of course you do. But for the most part, all the action is from one hard camera, unless you go in the corners or whatever it might be. And then you do get more of a sense of the physicality when the camera is low down and right in your face. But other than that, everything's so far away. You're liking the back of the terraces as a viewer.
Is that why FIFA translates so well? It's just the one camera goes like this.
Yeah, totally. It really is. And that is why, because I was going to mention this before, the X cam in the XFL was designed to mimic the Madden games.
Oh, wow.
That was the original reason for those particular camera shots, because they mimic the games, because generally the camera is behind the line of scrimmage or whatever. And then
it's Diablo 3 or Diablo 4 camera, 3/4 overhead, not in the corner. But here, you're right. I just played Madden yesterday in franchise mode, and you're right. It follows it like it's on a fly wire, zip line. That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, the zoomy in and outs and the slams, on slams, and then cuts when strikes land. Now, these aren't as implemented anywhere near as much during the reign of terror of Kevin Dunn, of course, but they're still there. And are you happy for the zoomy in and out bits during the big slam kind of thing, or is that something you still pick up and are irritated by? And similarly, when a punch is thrown, camera cut, the second, skin on skin happens kind of thing.
Well, that's carried over from Kevin Dunn. The cut on impact, or when someone impacts, you go to a different camera angle. You cover up if it's going to be a weak punch.
It's like an insurance
Yeah.
cut, isn't it, basically?
Well, yeah, but also it terms the impact on cut. It's almost a movie style. That's what I think they were trying to implement, or kind of like, imitate with that. The zoom in and zoom out, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. I'm pretty agnostic on it. I liked when and that was how Jey Uso, getting back to Jey Uso, that's how Jey Uso got over in a way, because they stuck with him. They didn't just keep cutting the crowds. And that was one of the first major switches after Kevin Dunn, that they stuck with Jey. I got to say this, we didn't cover this part of it. One of my favorite things, I don't know how they do it without, someone reaching up and grabbing it. The drone shot from the outside through the concourse into the arena is one of the coolest shots to open up a show. They don't do that much anymore. They did it like 2 or 3 times, maybe a little bit more, but not much anymore.
Do you remember when they did the drone shot with Bron Breakker doing the spear in the aisleway?
Yeah.
It made it look even better.
It's just, those are the little things that, like you said, I feel like all that might be a video game type, impression, like the sky cam. But I do think, and you said too, you wish they would bring back the Wile E. Coyote cam above whenever someone takes a big bump. That they actually brought that back for Bron Breakker's super spear. That was overhead.
So, the old Vince McMahon logic of never having cameraman or production assistants in shot. Now, for my taste, I think makes the product look too sanitized and like a television production rather than, a happening that is being captured live. It feels to me in that sense that there's just far too much overthought going on in the production truck in that sense. But I never minded when cameraman. I think it makes it a bit more chaotic in a positive sense.
I feel like I'm trying to remember back to some talent meetings or some edicts that were brought down on us. And sometimes, besides holding the tag rope and everything else, I believe what Vince said, it's kind of like the Beyond the Mat. There was a cable and he's like, can I get a clean shot? I feel like, and Vince was right, maybe not today in 2025, but I feel like I would err on the side of what Vince feels. If you see the camera, you almost are broken out of the WWE universe, out of the suspension of disbelief. Now, obviously, like you said, these two guys are talking, they don't know a camera's right there. But then again, the camera being there, being broken up or not being used as a prop, kind of breaks that suspension of disbelief. That's you can say, hey, it doesn't work anymore. Everybody, people, the memo has been reached that wrestling is predetermined and it's a show. Enjoy the show. But at the same time, I can appreciate what Vince was trying to do to immerse the person watching the product, to say the focus is on these two. There's another thing too. If the cameramen are right there and they're not being interacted with, somebody's going to be distracted by a cameraman, because the last time I saw a cameraman really that tight near a match was when the Fireball and Hogan with Yokozuna, or even Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle. They've used the cameraman, and unless you establish that the cameraman isn't really a part of it and people are lulled into that false sense of security, now you can have Shawn Michaels dressed as a cameraman. Now you can throw a Fireball at Hogan. Today, maybe not so much, but I appreciate that part of it as well.
Yeah, you said that you really enjoyed when all the cameramen wore the boiler suits in the day. Like
I'm sure
uniforms.
they didn't in Texas in July. But.
Sure they didn't. I'm going to just make a couple of quick points and carry on. Camera flashes aren't a thing anymore. That's not a production thing. Obviously, that's just technology these days. But it's such a shame because, that almost like romantic visual you get, with Jimmy Snuka diving off the cage, or old boxing matches, that kind of thing. Just it's kind of dead in that space. I did put, once again, some booking stuff I'm skipping past. Pacing of TV shows and pay-per-views, that is a different argument for a different time, I think. But this isn't, because this is a production issue. Sponsorship oversaturation, which, in your opinion, because I think quite a lot of people don't mind the sponsors on the ring apron. Some people do. Where's your line?
Who I think they crossed the line, or the line in my estimation, but we're too far gone, and now they got to keep making more money every quarter. So we're going to see more sponsors. I believe on the positive side of sponsorships and doing this kind of thing, it does put WWE in a UFC NASCAR type of hemisphere. Like, in other words, we don't like it because we're not used to it, but NASCAR fans seem to enjoy NASCAR, even with however many, their entire jackets, which WWE is one step away from doing, having all the sponsorships on their outfits. But this is nothing new. In my way of looking at it now, since we were kind of looking at the flip side since episode 74, I'm like, I can appreciate the fact that WWE looks mainstream. WWE looks, like they're Fifth Avenue, like they're Wall Street, and that takes away some of the heart and soul away from the company. But you have to think from a business standpoint, and even a casual fan, they kind of look similar to USC, which is not a bad thing when it comes to that. I don't like it, but we're not going to get rid of it now. And now that if they could create an LED mat, they would switch out the sponsorships there, not just the ring post, not just the barriers, not just the ring apron. But I'm kind of like, how can I say it? I did a whole video about how I hate those mats with the ads. And now I'm just kind of like given up and submitted and said, it's the way it's going to be.
What about every match being sponsored by a different product on the LED barriers?
Okay, here's the problem with that. It used to be, we have this match, we have this segment. Let's see, this will be good for a sponsor because it's a highly rated quarter hour. We can show metrics, get better sponsors, get more money. It's reversed now. Well, we just got Slim Jim. How can we creatively book a match with a table so somebody can go through the Slim Jim table? We have Irish guys, so let's book a brawl and have vodka or gin sponsoring the match. It's what it is.
AEW did the same thing. AEW does the same thing with didn't they have like a Street Fighter thing not too long ago? And it was like a Street Fighter brawl, and they've done a few. And then was it the Cracker Barrel? They did Cracker Barrel, I think.
That's the one. Yeah. I mean, it's sports based. What can you do? So I don't know. That's something right there. Everybody is trying to milk everything they can financially. They're a publicly traded company. They have to, in other words, if they're projected to make $120 million this quarter and they only make $100 million over the last one, they've lost $20 million. So they're in that bubble where they need to just make ads everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, during a match, here comes someone with a run-in, but they're running in to help because this person is tired. He's got Uber Eats. Uber Eats.
I'm sure they've done that. The guys, the Prime bottle.
Oh, the Prime bottle stuff. Yeah, that's part of Logan Paul's deal, though.
Who was Rey Mysterio dancing with on his entrance at WrestleMania?
Oh! Come on, man. What are you doing? Now you're going to make me look like a hypocrite because I love the Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot. And if that person could come back, as a matter of fact, I will only go back to WWE if they allow me to take on the persona of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot.
Who's the one? I don't know if it's like an insurance thing, but it's like General Insurance, and it's got like a big mustachio guy. And it's like, why is Dutch Mantel sponsoring the main event?
The General. Yeah,
the General, yeah.
Shaq is in that. Well, Shaq does all the commercials. You remember in TNA, when I was at TNA, every show was sponsored by Direct Insurance.
Was it?
Yeah, there was a time when it had Direct Insurance on the aprons and everything else, yeah.
Do you remember WCW? Was it Halloween Havoc that they'd have the Slim Jim stuff everywhere,
But
including
that
on the
was
ring
because of
posts.
Savage.
Hmm.
That's an interesting thing. See, that's where I think WWE and TKO are being careful, even though they still have Slim Jim commercials, that they will never allow a wrestler to be so tightly tied to a product. Because for people that don't know, Savage left WWF at the time for WCW and took the Slim Jim sponsorship with him, which is unheard
Not
of.
immediately. Not immediately. Do you know who they tried to get to replace Savage? If my memory serves me correctly, Bigelow.
Really?
Yeah, they tried Bam Bam Bigelow for a short while, and then maybe the timeline's a bit wrong, but I know they replaced Savage at some point and tried to get other people in there, and it wasn't the same, obviously. And then when Savage negotiated with Bischoff, he basically said, I think I can bring Slim Jim with me for sponsorship, and it paid off pretty much Savage's entire first contract.
That's very smart. And Savage got himself over, so he ended up with another contract. And did they stay with Savage through Savage WCW towards the end?
Yeah, I think so. Stayed for years.
Awesome. Very cool. That's a wrestler's dream. If you can be tied to such a brand, and we're going on 30 years, right? In 2027, 2026, where Savage had that sponsorship go to WCW. Whereas even earlier than that, was it 95, 94,
94,
95?
94.
Wow. So we're talking over 30 years.
Mm.
And they're still doing ads with Savage in them, correct?
Are they?
I could have swore it might have been on YouTube. I saw one like a couple weeks ago.
Let's go to some other stuff then. So, you're saying like the ramp, they have had LED ramps before, but only for like WrestleMania. So that
I
could
think the
be
Randy Orton
something.
Viper entrance killed that one off, right?
What happened?
At WrestleMania,
Just because it looked like a giant sperm.
Yes, that's the one. That might have been the killer right there. That was the mystery one of the ramp entrances.
The
And the mystery one was worse. You're right.
no,
Saw
that's
your
pretty
face.
bad. The Prime Bottle Hydration Station. Does that annoy
Well, nobody
you?
hates that more than Jey Uso at this point.
I know, he really tried his hardest to pick it up, and it was sort of like, ugh. And then he tried with the stairs, and he couldn't lift them either, really. That was really funny.
I'm right there with you, Jay. I can't. I feel for you. I wouldn't even try to lift either one of them. Hey, imagine if I did it, and I'd be like, oh my God, my disc slipped down. I was just laying there in a ball.
It's been 40 minutes, and Stevie has not moved from the position he was in. Yeah, I can imagine.
Enjoy the injury.
Enjoy the injury. Okay, is the Prime Bottle thing fine for you then? Is that something that just washes over you at this point? Or does it still offend you that it's in the corner? Because they always have to interfere with it every week. So it kind of feels like the Slim Jim tables.
Do you think that there's, the Slim Jim tables, the vodka, everything? Do you think there's a booked thing that says, like, or a part of Logan Paul's contract that hydration station needs to be upended or something has to happen almost every episode?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would dare say that I think this used to happen back in the day, probably still does now for sponsorship, that they will have somebody with a stopwatch watching the show to make sure that there's a pre-agreed amount of seconds that hydration station is on screen for every episode. Wow. I've genuinely got a feeling that they'll be like that anal, but I believe they used to do that in TV for sponsorship. They would have someone dedicated with a stopwatch to make sure enough seconds were dedicated to the sponsor.
Well, the problem with it too, how long's this thing been there? Years at this point?
No, about a year, maybe a bit longer, because then Prime started sponsoring the ring canvas, which I'm not sure it is anymore, because now it's Riyadh season sponsoring it every week, it seems.
Yeah.
But the hydration station
not
remains.
Be sponsoring anytime soon.
Oh my God. I'm still waiting for me hatchling to pop out or whatever it is.
Actually.
Whatever.
What I was going to say was the Prime, all these things, by the way, if everything's an ad, nothing's an ad. You don't speak to me, and I don't, outside of us getting paid to notice it, it blends into the canvas and becomes nothing. The hydration station means absolutely nothing right now. And I thought, dude, it could have been 10 years there, or it could have been 10 months. I don't know, because it's gotten to a point where it just blends into the background.
wrestlers getting sponsored, do you think that's where we're heading next? Because Brock Lesnar did it. You know, he was sponsored by meat for years. Whatever that was, the meat
Well,
sandwich
Jack
thing, Jimmy
Lane's,
John's.
Jimmy John's,
Yeah.
sandwich shop, a bunch of other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, do you think it's now going to be the point where, because I remember like it was a huge deal back in the day where Nike started sponsoring Anderson Silva and a couple of other like the mega stars beyond just whatever regular sponsors they were having on their trunks, and then Reebok came in and erased all that, much to the chagrin of every single fighter.
Oh, the Diaz brothers were very vocal about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and now they're everything's sponsored by Venom pretty much. But yeah, they were getting some big sponsorships. But I'm wondering if that's where wrestlers are going to be heading next. Someone's going to be sponsored by Apple or something? I don't know. Could be
Well,
anything.
let's be accurate. The wrestler's not going to be sponsored. WWE and TKO are going to get all the money and force the wrestlers, much like the fighters, you have to wear this.
No, they would get a cut. I think in that instance they would get a cut.
Maybe I heard the pay structure at WWE with TKO now is kind of an all-in guarantee, and maybe you'll get some money on top here and there. That all depends.
Yeah, but that won't be in his contract, though.
It all depends on if Turkey likes you.
Yes, but I don't think that'll be in their contracts, and you have to be sponsored by Adidas or whatever. I don't think that'll be in their contract. Like, you must wear this product or do whatever.
No, but there could be something in the contract. We have to talk to David Otunga about this. There could be something in their contract that states anything like a blanket clause of endorsements, sponsorships, outside work in Hollywood, any of this stuff. Maybe TKO WWE gets a large piece of it and the person gets some of it. Or this is your guarantee. Remember, they bumped these guarantees up to what, 350 minimum?
Mm-hmm.
And people making some 7 figures. I think we're very much in you're basically guaranteed contract. And if you're politically aligned or if they like you enough, yeah, we're going to give you more money. But if you're just kind of like we're going to talk about LA Knight later, I'm hoping that guy got paid for Slim Jim, but I'm not so sure.
One more thing to sort of wrap this bit up is the tables once again with Slim Jim, and you pretty much said it at the beginning when you brought it up, but it now feels like you remember a week or two ago when it says it's like a stipulation that requires a match, not a match that requires a stipulation, and now it just feels like a table that requires a spot rather than a spot requires a table. It feels like they have to have these Slim Jim tables once a week. It has to have that logo clearly visible for so many seconds per week on WWE television for it to count as a viable week where they'll pay you kind of thing. And that to me, I can to a point get on board with the ring canvas sponsorships and stuff, even though they keep changing the colour of the ring canvas, which I don't like the black and I don't particularly like the blue. I just like the cobalty grey one, which is just miles better and doesn't distract as much. But with the Slim Jim tables, all I can see when they happen is, one, it cheapens the impact, and I don't just mean having it so often to fulfill contractual obligations. It just makes it less of a bump visually if you go through a table with sponsorship all over it. But also, it's just corporate hollowness and cashier's checks ringing. That's all I see, and that ruins it. Everything else I can deal with.
Well, yeah, because if you have CM Punk, the last time I saw the Slim Jim table prominently in the corner,
he was there for 10 minutes.
But he got hit and through the table. But basically, what happened was you got a guy who's literally just like knocked out, maybe injured, cut up, scraped up by a table. But then you got this big Slim Jim thing kind of flapping over him, and that's the focus of what you do. Let's also pair this to the fact that the Slim Jim tables are not even that special, because you know what they still do? Put people through the commentary table. If you eliminate that, at least now, those tables have some. But you're right. It's not about, and this is where they can tweak it, James, with a little bit of creative. All these things are fixable. That's why I think we need to really emphasize multiple times during this episode. These are very fixable things over consistency and over time. But you're almost saying, well, yeah, CM Punk has a blood feud with Seth Rollins and, he has a thing with Drew McIntyre, whoever it might be. But we're going to forego getting sympathy on our babyface and having him beat down and maybe they'll beat him down and they'll break his ankle with a chair. Well, we can't do that because we got to do this spot with the Slim Jim table. Even though we want to take him out, we're just going to put him through the table and make sure you zoom in, zoom out on the Slim Jim logo. That's where the creative disconnect is, and you're not getting heat on your heels and sympathy on your baby faces. No matter how many sponsors you have, people are not going to buy tickets unless they care about both sides of the proverbial wrestling coin.
Enjoy the show.
But
Whatever happens.
That.
There's 2 more bits of production I want to bring to your attention. You tell me if you think they're good or bad, right? So when Raw went to Netflix originally, they had an opening montage shot of people coming towards the camera, coming out of the rental cars, walking into the back, they're dressed in their civilians' clothes, that kind of thing. And it was great sports presentation, ESPN style kind of thing, the first week. Then they did it again and again and again. So now they open every single show the exact same way. There is no punch, there is no nothing anymore. That's more of a booking thing, I guess, to bring up, but is it as redundant for you as it is redundant for me, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I would save that for the PLEs, the pay-per-views, the special nights. I would definitely do that. And when they do it at the opening up every show, this is where I talked about it on Russo's show. We talked about it here. Also talked a little bit about it with Renee and Maven and Amir, is if you only had an hour or 90 minutes at the most, you would not put in all this time filler. You would get right to it, try to get business done, leave it with a cliffhanger, rinse, repeat that way every single week. When you have 3 hours to fill, whether a pay-per-view or a TV, which, by the way, I still contend, what's so special if they're all the same length? How am I watching a bonus that I'm paying for when it's the same length as what's almost free? Yeah, it definitely, but I feel like that's the mode they're in. Not how can we put on the best product to make people want to watch next week? How do we fill 2.5 to 3 hours? And let's just go from there.
One more thing that I wrote just at the bottom here is, one, the acting backstage. I will forever hate that they ignore the camera and do it like a soap opera. I've hated it from the day they started in 99. The other thing is once again, they don't have that like anywhere near. AEW's the same. They don't have a really great looking static camera shot of a backstage promo dedicated area with a great background, uniform throughout, someone interviewing, sort of taking charge of the interview, I guess, like a Mean Gene would do, and once again, static camera, slow zooms in, slow zooms out. I do not know for the life of me why they have to have a handheld camera wobbling all around the place, getting right up the wrestler's nostrils half the time. They used to do that in the Ruthless Aggression era all the time. The camera, they would actually have a dedicated promo area with, the Raw logo on a TV screen. And then the camera go right up Triple H's nostrils, or Randy Orton's, or whoever it might be.
And we still haven't seen that camera to this day.
No, it's been lost ever since. And I just why?
You know why?
Yes.
It's the Andre the Giant or anything else of a giant. The classic giant entrance, the giant Andre, Taker, other people, they shoot from the floor to make them look bigger and larger than life. For instance, in that interview said, Jonathan Coachman was taller than a lot of the guys, or at least the same size. He had to spread his legs out and squat down a little bit to be smaller. This is all an optical illusion. That's what they were trying to do with it. Unfortunately, you get that. All you remember is people's nostrils and shooting straight up and doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's the memory in the moment you were creating with that. But yeah,
to get someone shorter. There's many people shorter than 6'3".
You know what you need to do? You need to have a Mean Gene come back. You need to have a former wrestler. In other words, that's what the NFL gets right. That they have sideline reporters. They don't just follow the football players and there's a camera and they have to act like there's not the camera there. They're getting comments. There's somebody running around the whole show trying to further the storylines, reacting to heat in the ring, reacting to a loss, reacting to a win. That's how it organically moves. And I feel like either a former worker that can do it, where, by the way, the wrestlers aren't going to necessarily bully. That's another way to keep them honest and on point. You ever notice, like with certain people, they try to get over by intimidating the interviewer or do it's so you
Yeah.
move left field before you concentrate on that person, it kind of suffers.
Yeah, that's something that really gets me. The other thing that gets me, Tony Schiavone falls for this still. I'll give that as an example. Have an interview in the corner. Tony Schiavone welcomes me in. Hello, wrestling. Hello, welcome, wrestling fans. The greatest, interview in the history of our sport. Here he is, so and so. Within 10 seconds, they take the microphone off Tony Schiavone. So he stood there like a lemon the entire time. And it's like, Tony, do you know what? The only time I saw Mean Gene get the microphone removed from his hands was with Kevin Green. You know, the NFL guy who did he play for? Wisconsin, maybe.
Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay.
And he teamed up in that, what was it, against McMichael in one of the pay-per-views, right?
And he just ripped it out of his hands because I guess he didn't realise the edict of it. But other than that, no, Mean Gene wouldn't be intimidated. He would keep the microphone. He would ask the questions and direct the interview. And he was also, in WCW especially, even in the later years, the roving reporter at the same time. And you need that host who's just as important as the commentators.
He's an MC of the show. He really is. He's a storyteller, the narrator, does all. You know what that is? And this is just my guess, because I've been backstage, and when they came back after doing something like that, I would say, well, why did you grab the microphone? You had an interviewer to bounce stuff off of. You know what I mean? It's the biggest gift in the world. You only got to do half the work, not think, react off of what they say. They got to remember everything. You know what it was? It's a nervous tick. You don't feel in control when someone's holding it, so you grab the microphone, and then what do? Start to walk around and say, they can direct it. And you're right. With Tony, I would have Tony to bounce something off of, and I would have some kind of shtick between us to where he'd always want to interview me.
I want pushback with the babyface MC and the heels to challenge them. Do you know who else was good at that? Kevin Kelly.
He was. Yeah.
There's a great segment, Attitude Era, Vince McMahon, where he pinned down Vince for an answer whether he wanted Steve Austin to be the corporate champion or WWF champion. And he kept pushing it to the point that it almost looked like Vince was going to fire him. But he was great in that role. And wrestling sorely misses that. I'll tell you that.
There's also, we're just going to talk about more of that, Michael Cole, who you don't like when he stands up and cheerleads, that does all that stuff.
I don't like when he sits down. Like when he opens his mouth.
Stands up, sits down, lies down, eats, intermittent fasting.
He could be prostrate. He could be splitting his legs like Jonathan Coachman. I'm not bothered.
Flying, driving, checking into a hotel. Did we leave anything out? But remember, right before the Montreal Screwjob match, he went up to Vince and he said, hey, was it him or was it Kevin Kelly? Where he said, I got one more question, Mr. McMahon. Who's going to win? And he's like, I don't know. I think it was Michael Cole.
I don't remember.
But that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. If you really want to, you're pinning him down. And I bet you Vince didn't even know what Kevin Kelly was doing. And he probably, during that moment, wanted to fire. But afterwards, he was just like, Vince, you can say what you want about Vince, and most of it's true. That guy had so much self-awareness on camera as a character with where he needed, as we say, for lack of a better word, show your ass, show your vulnerability. That's what Vince knew how to do. And that's why the Authority era with Triple H and Stephanie never really worked, because they never let the talent get over on them. It was really strange.
If an edict was passed down that they could tell the performers and say, right, here is what Jackie Redmond is going to do now. You don't do these things. You don't grab the microphone off her. You don't push her or anything. You don't get physical with her because... And three, you don't know what she's going to say either. And you better just react. And I think some of the best moments come from you actually don't know what half the questions are going to be thrown back to you. But I think she could do that. I think she'd be good at that.
I have no doubt that
Renee as well. She was great.
That would be a dramatic improvement in the spontaneity and the organic growth of the product. No, I totally agree. And the thing is that, like, if you rehearse, that's where at the training phase. I always talk about the infrastructure of WWE being completely inept and flawed. That's what they don't teach them in NXT or the Performance Center. In other words, you wrestle by numbers, you do a promo by numbers, you get it within 30 or 45 seconds. Everybody claps and says, great job. Then you go up to the main roster and you start getting tested in the way that I got tested on the indies, in ECW, in the places where the least amount of people are watching. You're doing it now, and that's why I think people wash out. And it's not the talent's fault. I'm saying that every episode. If you're trained properly and you get up there and then you're a bust, that's one thing. But when you're trained a completely different way, and then you get to WWE and you're forced, I don't even know if people know what an audible means at this point in wrestling.
Dragon Lee certainly doesn't.
I'm just saying. But Dragon Lee, by the way, may have been told, do not dare go off script, much like I did, went from the bullet point era of promos to you didn't say point seven and you left out the and in this word. I'm serious. You didn't say the and right here. Do it again. I'm like, I'm going to get fired. I can't do this.
Okay, for the next argument, that basically we just agree on everything. We're the worst arguers in the world. Like, I think it's like 99% of the things think the exact same deal.
During the break, you were like, that first segment or that first category of the episode went over an hour. Maybe we could try to. But I love these conversations, man, when we go back and forth. And of course, we're two guys kind of sitting on the couch or on the phone or doing whatever. And we say, oh, man, do you remember this? Remember that? And we're kind of going back and forth a little bit, but it's a good fluid conversation to compare it. But yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I wish I had the, like you wish you had Taker Studio. I wish I had just a one day with somebody doing production, lighting, audio, all that stuff to just come in and reconfigure all this stuff. It needs to be reset. During the break.
You just change it anyway.
That's true.
It doesn't matter who you bring in, you would change it as soon as they left, I'm sure.
I saw Maven's studio. I usually don't get jealous and hot. I don't have that kind of wrestling thing in me, but his studio looks really nice. And I was instantly so mad.
Oh, no. Well, you told him how to build it, didn't you? Or you consulted?
I did. He did a great job. Better than I did. He took my advice better.
Right, let's move on. The schedule, better or worse? So, arguments for, arguments against. Where do you want to start?
I would definitely start with for, why it's better.
Okay, then we will do just that. So, in the top leagues these days, wrestlers compete far less for way more money than they could have even dreamed of 10 years ago.
Absolutely true.
What say you?
Absolutely true. Yeah, there's one thing that they've done, and then we're going to go to the other side of the coin with a lighter schedule. What can happen with injuries? I mean, it's really just, this is like one of the most polarizing things. Because when we were working 300, 320 days a year, more so during the 80s and 90s, those guys were working like 21 on, like 2 or 3 off or something, just an insane schedule for a lot less money. So the health of the wrestlers could be better, but then we'll get to the against in a few minutes, but definitely they have more of, how would you say, a TV product schedule than they used to have in the past.
More time to heal between matches. Now, this also goes with what we're going to talk about in the converse, in the against as well, but more time to heal between matches.
Well, also, they have more time to heal from injuries. I see a lot less people. We talked about Test being released while he's injured. They have Ridge Holland, which was actually kind of an outlier in this modern time. A lot of people who get injured tend to stay with the company. You said before there's no turnover with the roster. People spend 10, 20, 25 years in the company, and that's true. And that can be a bad thing creatively, but a very good thing for job security, for giving people a chance to build generational, multi-generational wealth, and also combined with less matches, possibly come out almost as healthy as they went into the business.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, because I just can't see this current crop of wrestling stars, even, the people who are creeping in their 50s like your Edges and CM Punks and whatnot. I mean, Edge is over 50. I don't see them being kind of broken down, I guess, than wrestlers who may have had to have suffered through the WWF and the rock and wrestling era, you know, when they were doing 300 days on the road every year. And for some people, it's a struggle, like Jake's on oxygen all the time, or Marty Jannetty struggles to walk around because of various ankle injuries, stuff like that. I don't foresee issues for the current crop, the current generation, like they were in the 80s, where the schedule was outrageous. I mean, it was a scandal how much they were overworked back then.
Well, I would argue one point on that. It's probably part of the arguments against section in this video. I would say that we may have another epidemic of CTE, of concussions, that you might not be wrestling as much, but the pumps you're taking each match, thank God you have more time to heal, because they are definitely pushing the envelope a lot in all companies right now.
Well, I was going to say the thing I already just said. More time to do outside commitments for extra income, and we are seeing more of this, whether it be Twitch, whether it be acting gigs, the likes of MJF, Mercedes Moné, Drew McIntyre, Becky Lynch, loads of them, and both companies now are actually allowing it to happen at the same time. They're giving. Some might argue that Tony Khan's giving MJF a bit too much time off. He's barely ever on TV for the last couple of years. But that being said, there are a lot more opportunities for the guys and girls to make money away from wrestling. And keep in mind, they're making great money in wrestling.
I would just hope that they are getting a good piece, if not all of that money outside, because in my day, when I was there was outside stuff that was always getting turned down by the company that they wouldn't, and they were very protective of the characters. If there was an acting role or something that didn't fit with what they were doing storyline wise or character wise on TV, I can understand why they would say no. In this day and age, there's a lot more outside projects, but I'm hoping, and of course, it's because Ari Emanuel basically represents almost everybody in Hollywood, his company. So it's an easy crossover. But my question is, how much of the extra income, if any, are the wrestlers, are the talent getting to keep? I don't have any facts on that or anything. I just know the way wrestling promoters work. They're kind of selfish.
Isn't it weird that so many people in TKO also were former or current talent agents? When did that happen? Because Nick Khan as well.
It happened with Nick Khan and then TKO and all that stuff, because Vince McMahon actually hated agents more than anybody. He never wanted to negotiate with an agent. When Barry Bloom initially came in, he was not received well from what I heard.
Do you know the Goldberg story about that?
I
the
do
agents?
Not. No.
His first meeting with Vince McMahon, I guess, whenever it was, 2002 or 2003, went into, I don't know if he went into Vince's office or he was on the phone to Vince's receptionist or something like that. And she let slip to Goldberg, oh, Vince hates agents. He doesn't like dealing with middlemen. He wants to deal with the talent. And Goldberg, as soon as he listened to that, went, thank you. Booked himself an agent as quickly as he could and brought the agent with him to his contract negotiations. Because his thought process, very wisely, was if Vince hates them, there's a reason he hates them.
He hates them because there's money on the table that they can get and put in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And probably when he walked in, Vince saw the agent. He goes, why did you bring an agent to this meeting, Bill Goldberg?
Brett shedding a tear somewhere.
That in the Stinky Face podcast. If Bill Goldberg ever is on the Stinky Face podcast, we may have to pick you up off the floor.
If Brett can call in, I might even watch.
A Bret Hart, Bill Goldberg debate on the Stinky Face podcast. You want to talk about ratings, brother.
Lack of burnout. Now, how many days... Okay, I've never asked you this before. How many days in a row were you on the road for the longest time?
The longest time, probably, I would say 14 to 17 days. Talking about mixing house shows, 2 TVs, international tour, back to that, and then doing something else like third-party related or doing appearances or stuff like that. Sometimes it would be like leading up to WrestleMania, and especially after WrestleMania, we would have the WrestleMania Revenge Tour. Then there would be during the holidays when people were, getting Christmas presents with tickets and stuff. We would have Christmas off and New Year's off, but that whole week and then that whole week after New Year's. So we would get a break here and there, but it would be like a quick turnaround. But I would say just over 2 weeks in WWE. And then sometimes on the indies, if I went overseas, I would be a full week to 10 days.
Dutch famously said more than once on the, I was going to say the other show, but the story time, the longest he was on the road, it was with WCW, and he was like, I'm sure they're trying to run me off. Over 60 days. And he didn't go back home for 2 months.
Didn't Big Boss Man have that problem too, where they kept him on the road for like a month or two?
Yeah, I think they did that to certain people to try and get them to quit, especially if they had guaranteed
wasn't
contracts.
The grind. That was the easier schedule, right?
Yeah, that's usually later on, but in the early 90s, like the Jim Herd era and the Bill Watts era, it was ridiculous. Like they would work people to death on those tours.
He's trying to
well.
recreate like Mid-South and making them taking 300-400 mile drives and being on the road and all that stuff. Yeah, that's no good either. But of course, we can get into that with the arguments against, because there's a certain mental aspect when you know you have to work so many days and protect your body and make it to the finish line and be healthy enough for the next starting line after that. So that's what you said. There's more time now, but then again, let's go for broke because we got 7 days to heal.
So, yeah, once again, I mean, is the burnout real for you for the most part? Did you enjoy being on the road like that? Or is there just a point where you just think, I'm going to quit, I need to go home?
Being on the road's hard. Being on the road, being away from, I didn't have a family or anything, but being out of my routine, I did create an alternative routine that I tried to stick to as close to at home, meaning I'd still work out in the morning no matter what. I'd still try to eat at the same schedule, which was bars and shakes, to save money. I had my itinerary before I even left. I kind of took out the panic of what am I going to do? Where am I going to stay? It was all really planned out pretty well. Now, what made it stressful is when people start messing with you, when the company starts messing with you. And what's worse than being overworked is when you're on the road all week working house shows, and then you get the TV and do absolutely nothing. So all the things that you picked up on on the house show tours or other things, and you're like, I can't wait till we can do this spot. Because it used to be you would do the house shows to prepare for your TV match against the same person or a pay-per-view match against the same person. But I was part of that era where it switched over, where you'd work the house shows and then do nothing. And then the worst on top of that is you get flown out, you're prepared, you worked out, you mentally prepared to deal with these people, and you don't even have a match. And there you are in unbooked catering at 4:00 going, why did I even come? So being overworked sucks, but not getting any work means this to a worker. You're one step closer to getting released because you're not indispensable anymore. You're becoming more and more dispensable each week they don't use you. Then when you ask a question, you get sent home for 7 months. How about that? Aha.
Hey, less time in the company, I guess, means less chance of being messed around by the office.
No, they can still call you. I mean, Andrade will tell you that. They'll still call you, reach out to you. They'll send you to autograph sessions you don't get paid for. They can send you on the road without ever taking a bump if they really wanted to. They did that to me with Right to Censor. They sent me on a lot of things that weren't paid, and it just ended up costing me money.
Less travel means less driving at night, therefore much safer. So, you're doing a lot of driving between towns after shows. I mean, I'm sure the adrenaline's up and everything, but still, nighttime driving, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that. You could be the greatest driver in the world. You could fall asleep at the wheel. Someone else could fall asleep at the wheel and hit you. I mean, it just seems to be more dangerous. So the less you're on the road, the less likely something terrible can happen on the road in that vein, I guess.
It's weird. People out there who age, I find myself, I can't drive at night anymore, or I just don't enjoy it, or I don't feel like I have the stamina to drive, for a long drive, especially at night. But back in the day, one of my favorite things, and I told the story before during our video game episode, we'd bring the original Xbox, myself, Glenn, Charles Robinson, before he became an evil son of a you-know-what, Rosie, D'Lo Brown. We would play Madden, and we'd make sure two guys were always awake. Third is hopefully the driver, but we would play the game. And if you keep winning, you don't have to drive. If you lose, you have to drive. Those little games were fun. Another thing I really loved doing on the West Coast, especially, Glenn and myself used to listen to Coast AM with Art Bell all the time. And guess what I would do?
Call in.
I would call in and I'd say, aliens are coming and Turkey likes that. And I had no idea that in 2025 that would be relevant. That Turkey likes that.
Turkey doesn't like the aliens, though.
Can I tell everybody my dream that I wanted to put in the universe? That I wanted to be at one point, because I love radio, because I don't like being in front of the camera. There's probably a lot of people out there that don't like it either, but I love radio. I could turn the lights off, audio only. I wanted so bad to be a replacement host for Art Bell with Coast to Coast AM. Don't laugh at my dreams.
Hey, I want to be a radio DJ.
You have a great radio voice.
No, I don't. I've got a face for radio and a voice for.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, dude, I have to listen to myself all the time. You know how heartbreaking that is. Anyway, arguments against. Very few house shows. So obviously a schedule's lighter, but now pretty much all the house shows have been considered superfluous because, hey, they don't make enough money, so why would we do them anymore? And there's a lot of reasons why you do them. One, you keep fans more interested in what you would term B-towns. You keep it's almost like a grassroots kind of thing to keep fans interested in the areas that you don't visit ever anymore because there are no house shows. Other ones is, green wrestlers need to learn. And house shows are a great place to do it, the best place to do it. As John Cena said, you try new things on the road without the glare of international television cameras right in your face, and you're super nervous, and, one mistake could see you out the door, quite frankly, especially in the Vince McMahon times. But the other thing is, I guess, how they used to do it in the old days is you wouldn't even bring a match to TV until you'd worked with each other for 90 days for a full loop. So then by the time that match gets to television, it's fully polished, you know the routine, and it comes off great for the cameras. Whereas now, everyone's got to practice for 6 hours, and then it just looks rehearsed.
Yeah, absolutely. The way they used to book angles in the past, storylines, they would put two guys together or tag teams or whatever, or even women. And if they had really good chemistry and the matches got really good agent reports off of the house shows, guess what they finally do? We're going to turn it into a storyline. We're going to have it on TV. You guys are going to start talking about each other as you do your Murder Hour Wrestling Challenge matches. And then we're going to see, and if it keeps getting steam and it keeps going well, you guys are going to have a pay-per-view match. If that goes well, too, if you guys really have a feud, man, we might take this to WrestleMania. That's the natural progression of it. Now, let's put them on TV and say, hey, you're on TV and you're on TV. Have a match. And that's what it is. It's backwards. So let's see if it works out on TV. Okay, that was a good match. Let's have it. They're essentially doing house show matches. Like the example I give usually is back in the day, Aleister Black and Buddy Matthews. They had like 3 matches where they beat the heck out of each other. And then what? Instead of doing the house shows and saying, these guys have a super physical match and we should really give somebody something in this and a storyline. Then when they get together, here we are. Even if we can create a title that has to do like the pure title, these guys are just your basic rough and tough wrestlers like a Fit Finlay, a William Regal, and we're going to make a category of a special attraction with this or whatever. But no, they just had the 3 matches and like, okay, we've seen it already. Go move along. That's the part right there. And I feel bad for those guys because they took bumps, they laid into each other, and there was literally no payoff to it.
Character development happens, on the road and especially on the house shows. I mean, I'm sure you tried stuff on the house shows to see if it would get a reaction first, and now you kind of have to just gamble and hope it does, rather than, like a comedian before going on TV or doing a Netflix special or whatever it might be. They will test that material out first on the road a little bit before it makes it into the act. And I take it's the same for the wrestlers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, we have the biggest false positive with the NXT audience. The NXT audience wants the talent to get over. I love them. They're supportive. If you never go outside NXT, they'll make you feel like $1 million. But the problem is that false positive, you think the act is over, you think the character's over. You might even think we take the storyline to WWE. You need to have that's why ECW people get on it and all that stuff. But if you can get over in any shape, form, or fashion with that crowd, you've worked in front of the toughest crowd. That they really, really they wanted to have a good time, but man, they wanted to they had the magnifying glass out, the microscope out for any mistake you made. And the thing with making mistakes, by the way, mistakes can be something when you react to them could get you much more over, especially being a heel. It was just I feel for the talent. Let's bring this back around to them. I feel so much for the talent because the immense amount of pressure in that one match or that few weeks you have off of NXT to get yourself over. And God forbid, here's the worst part. They put a belt on you in the first 1 to 3 matches. That's an immense amount of pressure. And there's only one place to go from there. Down.
Maxine Dupree, she's a prime example of that, where she was shoved on the main roster way too early, no house shows to get her ready. Now she's the women's Intercontinental Champion. And they're doing weeks of vignettes with her training with Natalia. I don't know, it almost seems like draw it out so long.
Now you need to train.
Yes.
Now I need to get better because I won the title. And Maxine was actually over with Otis, with Chad Gable when they were all baby faces. And then what she did with even Tozawa and Otis. I haven't seen Otis in forever. Where's he been? Good Lord.
God, I don't even know. Probably on main
you
event
see what
somewhere.
I mean? Like he had so much momentum. The first one, the Money in the Bank, where they fought on the roof.
It's because they screwed up the Chad Gable thing. They finally got them together face to face, and then Otis stood up to Chad Gable, and then they did nothing with it. And then he just went. He was worse off for it. Then Chad Gable did the El Grande Americana thing, which was great, and then he got injured. Where's El Grande Americano? I've not seen him in a while. A couple of weeks.
He was just there. Well, they were on the AAA show, or they're going to. Well, they're now
the AAA show.
Yeah. Now it's Ludwig Kaiser, who was also over as Ludwig Kaiser in it. But that's what I mean. This is the kind of stuff where we do have enough to go off of with these people, but they do a stop-start so much. In other words, even Seth Rollins, and I know we're getting a little bit off topic. Seth Rollins is injured, but Seth Rollins has an injured shoulder, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't he do what Bret Hart did and continue to be on TV with the injury and get more over with the promos? Dare I say, you have a shoulder injury, you know what I would do? Put him in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous, right? But don't you remember when Bret was in that wheelchair? Some of the best segments came from that.
CM Punk, he got injured. They kept him on TV.
As a commentator, right?
Yeah, and then attacked Drew McIntyre occasionally. Yeah, it worked out.
He was a commentator
great.
Initially. Remember when he got the Indy? He wasn't able, and he was on commentary for a few weeks. When he took Hunter's jacket and went to commentary.
Oh, did he?
Well, he asked Hunter, "Can I wear your suit jacket?" He was like, "Yeah." And he went over there, and Punk did an amazing job on See, that's why you don't know what you have in the pipeline for the future if you don't test these people in different situations and keep them getting reps. Like you just said, if you don't have house shows, they're on TV, at least bring them into the show or anywhere to get reps and stay sharp for when they do come back.
Less matches means more effort in the matches they do have, which can... basically every match becomes a WrestleMania main event match in the sense that all the effort they're putting in, and then it heightens the possibility of injuries, I guess. Would that be fair to say?
That's a pretty fair assumption, a pretty fair, assertion with that. I don't have the answer. Like back when we were working that much, I would have been like, this is the perfect... But then again, we were still instilled with, you need to learn how to work. You got hurt. Now you need to slow it down. Now you need to work on promos. You need to get better with psychology. It seems like here, the infrastructure and the system says, when you come back, we're way up here now. You got to take even more, chances like that. I think if we get to a happy medium with some danger when it counts, but also get the characters over, and then the characters don't need to do as much. Think about Seth Rollins. He does all these incredibly athletic things, but what's he most over for?
Those stupid outfits.
Well, that's one thing, has nothing to do with taking bumps.
Mhm.
His entrance, the
Mhm.
sing along. That's all. I mean, Jey Uso was over on his entrance.
He was
Wonder
given
what
the world
rock.
title based on his entrance.
Well, exactly. But then again, like you said, one time here, one time there, special occasion here. We're on week 18 of Jey Uso doing the same 8-minute entrance.
Mhm.
You burn out the talent in a different way. And that solely is on creative, maybe the AI now, who knows? We got to write another AI angle for me this week or next week.
No, we'll do it for next week. Wrestlers still appear on television every week, though, or for the most part every week. So therefore, even though they're working less, they're still getting the same kind of burnout from exposure on television every week, which I think's interesting enough. So they've got a week to think about what they're going to do. So maybe that's a positive in that sense. But then, are you as sharp without the house shows? I don't know.
What I would say is not just the physical nature of this, but the one thing that's missing from all the shows, I think all the shows right now, is a main story arc throughout a show. In other words, if you had, say, CM Punk and Drew, basically going throughout the show, fighting, chasing each other. I know they're not in each other's orbit right now. I'm just giving an example on something that really had a lot of teeth between Drew and Punk. If you thread that throughout one show, then maybe a couple weeks you do that, maybe 3 leading up to a pay-per-view. Then in the next rotation, they have a place on the show, but it's a little more subdued or they split up. Then another story arc of, say, Roman Reigns and whoever. Do you see what I mean? Or Logan Paul and LA Knight. You know, LA Knight folding chair on the outside, folds his arm and waits for Logan Paul. Now we know what to expect to the rest of the show. But right now we have Brock Lesnar or somebody comes in, does their thing in the first segment, and they're gone. Now everybody else has to be on TV every single week to fill in that time. That's where I think an adjustment can be made.
If I were Dutch, this is the last point, and I would say maybe the most important point, is less travel means less talking and discussing stuff on the road, which is where many of the greatest ideas for matches, promos, and angles come from.
It can also get you unbooked from Ring of Honor if you give too many ideas to the booker.
That is also true. But you weren't... Oh, yeah, you were traveling with him, weren't you?
Yeah, for the Midwest tour. But yeah,
Lord.
that's when I did all my learning. In the locker room and TV and all, everything's moving so quick. So you can't pull somebody aside for advice when you're trapped in a car for 250 or 300 miles or an international flight. You can sit next to somebody and pick their brain, go back and forth, watch a match, see what to do. Dutch is absolutely right. I think that there, although like you said, you drive too much, you run into a lot of dangers, a lot of people out there drinking and driving, other dangers that aren't even anywhere near the ring. So, you know, then you got to probably race, throwing beer cans into the road signs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might bring back a lot of menaces to society if that happens. So maybe no more house shows.
Okay, this is going to be the last of the for and against segments now, and it is wrestlers today. Are they better or are they worse? Now, this is going to be incredibly contentious, and that's why I've put it in there, Stevie. So I'm going to give you the arguments for once again, and hopefully you'll be able to, I don't know if you'll agree with them, or you may well not. You're staring a hole through me. Has something gone wrong?
No, I took a drink off camera.
Oh, okay. No, you're looking at me like really intense. Oh, God, has the video gone?
Well, I think my insecurity, because, even back in the day, they were all better athletes than me. This is just going to make me feel even more or less than less in this regard.
Well, arguments for then. Today's pro wrestler, on average, is a far better athlete. I think easily. Would that be fair to say? That is the best current crop of genuine athletes that we have in mainstream pro wrestling now.
Oh, I watch most of the people in any company right now, and I'm like, they could be a professional athlete. Usually they come from, and that's something else. You're talking about college athletes, professional athletes coming into professional wrestling.
Yeah,
And then,
so many of the women were former gymnasts,
yeah,
like Tiffany Stratton and more, like
which is
gold medalist or medalist.
perfect, which is absolutely perfect. And then you talk about people that with the NIL program that WWE has to recruit these people. I go the inverse, and this is an even bigger compliment. I look at the athletes that are on TV today, and I said, I wonder if they could play football if they knew the playbook, or if they did, because they're athletic enough where they could maybe be somebody that could possibly do something. MMA is the easy thing. You talk about Bobby Lashley, Batista, other people, Jake Hager, other
CM
people, and I have
Punk,
no doubt. What's that?
CM Punk.
I like Punk, so that's why I didn't bring it up. But
Woof.
he still,
Yeah.
you know what? He still did it. He still did it.
Of course he
Even though
did.
it was,
He got paid over $1 million a fight.
I know there was strictly a publicity stunt, but he did it. He trained for it. And of course, it didn't work out, but I give him credit for doing that.
Mm.
Now, on the other hand, what I'm saying is, I look at a lot of people and I say, this person could probably be a really good baseball player if they have a baseball background. This person could probably be a really good football player if their body can take the punishment. In other words, I look at how athletic they are in WWE and say, this can translate into real competitive sports. I think that's the ultimate compliment to the rosters. And I'm not just talking about WWE. I see people in AEW and TNA and other places, even on the indies, where I'm like, this looks like a legitimate athlete that could translate with enough knowledge of how to play into another sport.
And speaking of that, in far better shape, generally speaking. I mean, you don't have, for the most part, the super muscle Mary roided out to their eyeballs types. There are a few, obviously. But, everyone, I guess, is eating better, working out more intelligently, not blowing the knees out, going heavy on deadlifts or something stupid. Seems like, once again, unless you're Rick Boogs and you're trying to do like that reverse lunge thing with both Usos on your shoulders. But in better shape generally, I think would also be fair to say.
Yeah, and I would say this, outside of the concussive bumps and everything, I would say, hopefully I'm right about this, that we're going to have a healthier crop of retired wrestlers from this generation. And longevity is the word that I'm hoping and praying that they all have. That literally this is just a chapter of their lives, not like what we've seen in past eras where when you're done wrestling, there's going to be a big hole basically in people translating to the next chapter in their life.
This one's very interesting because this can be taken positively and very negatively at the same time. Generally just more attractive. The women are, the men are. Which is good for, in one sense, I guess, for putting on posters and presenting a clean-cut image, but then you could also argue, man, none of these guys look as tough as they used to, or grizzled, or, weather-beaten. Do you remember someone like a Mark Jindrak coming in? And they were going to have him, obviously, in the Evolution, the group, and then it ended up being Randy Orton. But he could have fit into that same category. Big, muscled-up guys, slim, cut and everything, but kind of cookie-cutter. Cody Rhodes back in the day. Ted DiBiase Jr., there's dozens of them. You could argue the inverse, that they're purely picked for their looks as well, I guess. Where do you stand on that?
I was going to say, Ira Emanuel could probably book all these people in the modeling contracts as well, or fitness competitions, stuff like that, more healthy types of things. I was going to say Mark Jindrak still looks incredible and still could probably come into the WWE and make an impact. I don't know how old he is right now, but he's right along that line. Yeah, you're looking at a more attractive, like you said about the presentation. I think the roster matches the current presentation of very polished. But then again, very polished could be very sterilized and very sanitary, right? You're saying, like, where are the Bastion Boogers? Where are the Godwins? Where are people like the LOD and people like that, where you're like, yeah, man, I mean, that's big muscle dude. I wouldn't want to make, there's very few people outside of, I would say a few on all the rosters where you're looking at them saying, man, I wouldn't want to mess with that dude. And then there's most of the people where you say, yeah, I'll just go up. I mean, they're going to really mad if I mess their hair up.
Mark
Which there are a
Jindrak's
lot of legitimate
48.
tough people in wrestling. You got to be legitimately tough to do this. Take bumps, voluntarily get beat up, stiffed, all that stuff, and then come back and do it again. And I got to give them credit for most of the time keeping their cool and going forward and being professional. That's hard to do for a regular person.
Yeah, Jindrak is 48.
Makes me even
Just
more
because.
jealous. He's in better shape than me.
So, yeah, we'll go on the converse on that. Do they give a more spectacular show, wrestlers these days?
What would you say is that adjective spectacular? What would you call that? Is it more stunt show spectacular? Is it more aesthetically pleasing spectacular? Is it more like how should I say, a big, I don't know, sensory overload experience, that kind of spectacular, like a light show, fireworks, pomp and circumstance? Is it all the above?
Is it, well, let's take out the entrances. We're just talking about the performers themselves, I guess. Flashier. For the house, do you think if you go to a live show, do you think you would get more out of it nowadays than you would in the Attitude Era, for starters? As far as more spectacular things that you might see in ring.
I would say if you're at a stadium show, you're going to see a lot more fireworks, a lot more pyro. You're going to have a bigger fight feel to it. Spectacular matches. I think this is a positive and a negative. We're talking about the action in the ring. We have so many spectacular spots and so many big bumps happening and stuff like that happening that, like I said, if everything's a spectacular moment, then nothing is. It's all washed together. In other words, the biggest strength of having so many athletic people that can do larger than life spots, and you have that on a weekly basis on 2 3-hour shows and 1 3+ hour pay-per-view per month, it all washes together. Whereas, like, I would say if you watch a Bret Hart and Owen, Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, even Bret Hart and Roddy Piper, there was a spectacular feel to those matches. I would even say, like Hogan with anybody back in the day. It felt spectacular. It felt big. I don't know how you interpret that in modern times, but I would say that we need to focus and spotlight those spectacular matches and moments more and more. And unfortunately, we don't have a thing where we have to, and this is where back when I was wrestling, I hated it, but now I understand it. Where it's like, hey, Stevie, your second match, you have to do a very basic match because later on in the show we have something big happening and we need to really spotlight that later in the show.
This goes on, better shape, taking health seriously. And there's numerous pro wrestlers now in their 50s that work kind of close to what they were working in their 30s. And I guess, would it be fair to say that wrestlers, and you can take this either way, are wrestlers smarter now than they were?
I mean, you talking about outside taking care of themselves, doing cold plunges, doing all kinds of recovery therapy, training properly, not trying to kill their joints between matches with super heavy lifts and hip hinging movements and other things that could possibly like accelerate the natural damage from taking bumps. Yeah, they're a lot smarter than us. I just talked about Harley Race throwing beer cans at road signs. Most of the boys back then at the end of the show, maybe they still do it. Cooler of beer, take it on the road, go out all hours of the night, try to hit the gym, try to eat well, do whatever. I feel like it's the inverse now. Do all these things, and then maybe we do that, we treat ourselves to a White Claw or something.
Mm.
You love that drink.
Yeah, that's a drink for people who don't like alcohol. Anyway, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. I mean, back in the day, once you hit your 40s, you're basically washed up. Like Jake Roberts, I thought when I turned 40 years old, and I'm a year away from it, I'd look like that. That gave me such a skewed thought process of what a 40-year-old looked like. Regularly speaking, not at all. He just destroyed his body, basically, in many different ways. But back in the day, it just seemed like around 40 years old, you would be considered washed up. And maybe the rigors of the road would just get to you for the most part, and you just couldn't move as well. So what's the difference? Is it just purely a schedule thing for the most part that now wrestlers, like, once again, your Adam Copeland's or your CM Punk, he doesn't quite move the same he did, but he still moves very well for his age. What's the difference between wrestlers now and the wrestlers of 30 years gone by, that they can still work at a much higher level 10 years older, near 50, than wrestlers from the 80s could work at age 40? If that, it's a complicated way of asking, I know, but
I think the main thing in the ring is that they changed that ring. That ring back in the day was unforgiving. That's as hard as our desks and tables that we're working off of right now. It was made of something like Formica. I call it the WrestleMania 3 Hogan Andre ring because it needed to support super large, heavy people. We had Yokozuna, Mabel, Andre, Hogan, bigger guys. So you took a lot more punishment in that ring. Outside the ring, more importantly, has completely changed. The culture of between the matches, between the shows, has completely changed, lending to more longevity. Also, I think people are a lot more embracing the modalities of recovery. It's not just icing your knees and doing all this stuff. It's stretching, foam rolling, proper self-care, infrared sauna therapy, contrast therapy with cold plunges. I see AJ, I saw Punk. I think everybody on the roster owns a cold plunge and they invest in their health. And I really do believe that the company now, at least with catering, with food, trainers, backstage stuff, and of course, if somebody gets injured back in the day, if you were a top guy, you went to Dr. Andrews. You went there to Alabama. If you were me, and this is literally what they said, you're smart enough to find your own. Hey, you're smart enough to find your own doctor. Smart ass. I had to find my own doctor, which wasn't as good as Dr. Andrews. But I think now everybody has access to get proper recovery, medical care, surgeries, procedures, and that lends and stacks up to guys in their 50s. By the way, here's a fun fact. Maybe you know this. I'll ask you. At what age did Terry Funk win the ECW World title?
52. The second
52,
time.
53, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
That's what I thought I would look like at 52, 53. Now I'm 54. Of course, I'm not wrestling anymore, but like you said, it's completely flipped. Also, there's this meme, I think you've probably seen it. What does it look like to be 49? You have Wilford Brimley, the diabetes guy,
yeah.
and then you have Paul Rudd. People are healthier and just have more access to healthier information in 2025. Dude, we might have people in their 60s that look like LA Knight. You know what I mean? Or LA Knight could be in his 60s still wrestling and look every bit as good.
Let's go for the arguments against now. We kind of addressed it. So the injuries, they wrestle far less and get hurt just as often.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know the answer to that, though, because like I said before, when you're really dog tired and you're driving and flying and staying in hotels, that alone without wrestling will beat you up and wear you down. That's worse than any bump in the ring. So dare I say that it's kind of a wash right now. The only thing I would say is the adjustment is try to make it count. Try to make the big bumps count. Try to make the big spots and everything you're doing. Do them less often. The product will improve. And of course, your health and longevity and your career will also improve as well.
Okay, moving on. Wrestlers don't look anywhere near as tough as they used to. There is definitely an aesthetic change. I know we said it can go, positive, negative, that kind of thing. But it just seems to me that, I don't know if it's just the culture of wrestling these days, they've removed some of the toughest guys out there. Everyone wants to moisturize these days, I guess. I don't know. It seems like... Has pro wrestling removed the fringe weirdos that used to populate the damn profession, and with the most interesting characters in their own way?
Yeah, I'm hoping and praying for a Trevor Murdoch or somebody that just looks different than everybody out there. That's why I love Samoa Joe in WWE. He could do all the spectacular stuff, but also Joe looked like he'd been in a few fights, right? And he looked like somebody you didn't want to mess with, and he didn't have the classic bodybuilder. Brock's somewhere in between. Brock has the credibility of UFC, being a UFC champion. He's a big dude, and he's somebody you don't want to mess with. If we can sprinkle in a half dozen of those guys with the current crop, I think we'd have something there.
Yeah, you've got your Otis, who looks different. You've got... Do you know who kind of broke the mold? And I don't remember if people remember feeling that way about when Bray Wyatt debuted in WWE.
The entire family, actually.
Yeah, his body type, the big long beard, it was so converse to the 2000s WWE idea of who they thought was a star. You know, they'd also bring in Tyrus and people like that, of course, but, you know, they'd have some interesting looking people, if nothing else.
Yeah, and you think about Bray Wyatt, when's the last time they did that format to get a talent over? Vignettes. And he debuted with the family. I think that was Philadelphia. They were ready. They were ready for that. And the last time I remember that kind of reaction was when Taz debuted at the Garden versus Kurt Angle. With these vignettes where he didn't say a word, you didn't even see him. You just saw the thing pop up out of nowhere. So, and Taz was another one. You know, they could criticize his height and everything, but Taz looked different, and Taz looked like he'd been in a few fights. That's what you need. Kurt Angle was a pretty boy, but you knew he was a gold medalist, and you weren't going to mess with him. There was an aura about him. So, yeah, Chad Gable could be that dude that could kind of blend the pretty boy in there, but somebody who's like, you know, and they haven't done anything. I know I keep going off about Chad Gable, but my God, they haven't really fully even pushed Chad Gable yet. And how many times has that dude got himself over?
Exactly. Well, I think when he turns back up after the injury, recovers properly, then hopefully this will be the time for him. Wrestlers may be able to do more gymnastics, but most of them can't execute a convincing-looking headlock. And that just goes on to the fundamentals that was so fundamental back in the day, where you could actually get a rise out of someone with a headlock, or a good arm wringer, or a solid-looking Irish whip, or something like that. I don't think a single wrestler today can do that, or even knows how to. And that's the biggest criticism I can give to pro wrestlers today, I think.
I'll give you one, Randy Orton. If you want to talk about how to put a headlock on and not make it a rest hold, it's Randy Orton. And I think that right there is why Randy Orton stands out. Randy Orton has that classic wrestling repertoire. He has other things that he basically has basic moves, but the way he goes into them is always different and unique in a lot of ways. But if you think about Randy's moveset, it's very basic, it's plotting, and the headlock, you talk about a guy that made the headlock relevant again as something you legitimately, seemingly needed to fight out of. That's Randy Orton. And I think sometimes Randy would really wrench that in a safe way where you better fight up. I'm not giving it to you. That's what you're saying right there with wrestling. The headlock is an example. The word I think of that's missing from this era of wrestling is the struggle. The struggle. So when you finally get it, people are like, oh, he finally got it. The whole match, I was waiting for it. He was teasing it. The guy was resisting it. The guy got away from it. Then when Randy finally got him with the RKO, even putting the headlock on, guess what that is? Wear your neck down and your head down for the RKO. It all makes sense.
Yeah, everything's kind of like a Hallmark movie now. You know what I mean? Apart from the fact that we can talk once again more about the glossy production and everything, but you know the beats of the movie before you've ever watched it, because it's exactly the same. You know, there's
I'm in full Hallmark mode right now with my wife.
I bet you are.
Watching a Hallmark movie.
I bet you are.
I just want to let you know. Well, just like a Hallmark movie, when you get to 20 minutes before the end of the show, you're going to get all the entrances and all this stuff. And the Hallmark movies, at an hour and 40 into the 2-hour movie, the misunderstanding comes into play. But guess what? Like Dutch says, it's predictable. You know what's coming, but you still, that's not a bad thing sometimes to know what you're in for when you go into a show.
We tried to watch that one with Kurt Russell that just released like a week or two ago, and I just can't be bothered.
I saw Chris Jericho as somebody's dad in one of the Hallmark movies
last week. Really?
He was the musician dad. He's FaceTiming with her on the opening.
Okay, promos. I mean, there cannot be an argument here, surely. Today versus yesteryear.
And not
Can
on the
you?
talent.
No.
I do not indict the talent on this. Once again, like house shows, you need to get these reps on the promos. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but it cannot be said enough. And I was somebody I couldn't do it. So I give credit to the current crop. By the way, the top guys, even if they hand them a script, Punk did it right in front of me. He tore it right up in front of the writer. He goes, this is nothing I would say. The top guys can do that. And that's why they're top guys. James, everybody out there, comment below. Don't you notice the difference between the promos from the top guys and the people bottom the mid card? Because bottom mid card, you're not allowed to go off script. Top guys, they can ad lib, they can go back and forth, or they don't have a script to begin with. They need the bullet points and they're done. That's what's missing. I'm an example of going from one era to the other and not being able to adjust. Unfortunately, guess what's happening now? The people that are completely scripted, it's much harder to adjust to ad-libbing, improving, and doing all that stuff. So I feel for them, and that's a creative problem, not the talent.
Wrestlers these days are more happy to break character. They are less inclined to commit to the bit, I guess would be a way of saying it. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I really, and you know what? People say, well, what if social media was around during ECW? Well, ECW would be shut down in like 20 minutes. But besides that, yes, when in my younger days, social media was kind of a novelty for a while, especially for me and other people that are trying to build a business with it. But yeah, you give away too much on social media. Then there's people completely out of character. Hey, you know who really suffered from the social media thing? Rusev and Lana. I think them doing the social media, him mowing the lawn in his underwear, that's when it started to nosedive for those two. Because I didn't know she wasn't Russian. You know, she played Ivan Drago's wife to perfection. And then it killed everything. Social media, I feel like, has cost. Drew McIntyre and CM Punk did a great job with it. Outside of that, I think social media does more harm than good for the talent.
Selling in general, from injury to tiredness.
Well, I mean, you could criticize Shawn Michaels. That was a criticism a long time ago. A lot of people that Shawn looked just as fresh at the end of the match, which I wouldn't be doing the incredibly impressive stuff that Shawn did. But yeah, it feels like I love my favorite spot. I don't know what it is. Bret takes the front turnbuckle, and outside of the concussive effect, his mouth was gaped open. He's trying to hang on. And I have no doubt he literally knocked the wind out of himself. You know, so those kinds of things. I think what's the saying, Cornette? And we said it a million times. It used to be fake, but you made us believe. Now it's super real and nobody believes in it at all because they go like right to the next thing. They don't act tired. There's no, in other words, there used to be gears where you would be tired and then save your energy for the comeback and the finish and then go back to being tired again. Now it's like, I'm impressed. Like we said, they're incredible athletes, but then they're so incredible that they're never tired or gassed out. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I remember us watching the MJF Will Ospreay thing. I think we did. Maybe it was Dutch and I don't know. But they were 55 minutes into the match, and then they were doing the tiredness thing. And then they went into the most complicated thing, which was 10 sequences all strung together. And it's like they just got out there. There was no suffering ill effects of the rest of the match whatsoever, and I found that really frustrating, because if you're going to wrestle for 55 minutes, you should be crawling on your belly to your opponents to try and pin them, you know?
I know Brett didn't like it, but I loved the pacing of the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. Because they wrestled, they had different matches within that match. And I really liked it. You're talking about 55 minutes in, I could see that they were gassed. You know, then before the overtime, they kind of caught their breath and kicked it up a notch until the finish. It really was, as far as gears, it just was the perfect 1 hour plus match if you were going to do it that way. People don't understand too when you talk about that, and it's impressive, but at the same time, there's a disconnect because even as a former wrestler who had what people think is a motor, that I had a cardio, I was called cardio whatever. Even then, I would sell at the end of a 10, 12-minute match as if I was exhausted. To people can understand that, yeah, till 12 minutes of that, I'd be tired too. And he's at least on his feet. I'd be on my back. But in 55, if you're not tired, people are like, yeah, I hate these guys.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. I hate them.
There were so many people who were great, like from Jacques Rougeau or Bret Hart, or had someone else in my mind as well from around that era. But there were some people who used to do a wonderful job doing that. Tully Blanchard, there's another one who used to be great at looking tired and projecting that. Let's end on this one. Wrestlers like to overcomplicate things more than they used to.
Oh, in the ring and in real life, I'm one of those people. If you ever sat in on, you ever sat in on our production meetings? No, I think this is also not an against thing because I know the intentions of wrestlers. Wrestlers, no matter what people want to say, and we kind of say sometimes things get phoned in. I believe that's because, in order as a defense mechanism, because you had so many ideas shot down, you have to go kind of cold on everything. But wrestlers by nature care way too much. They are super critical. They are hard on themselves and they want to put the best amount of product that they can out there. They put so much pressure on themselves that they end up trying too hard. Sometimes you can hide that and your psychology takes over. And then sometimes you just want to go out there with a huge chip on your shoulder and prove everybody wrong. That's not a bad thing, but it needs to be controlled.
Yeah, I was going to say specifically the matches themselves could be very overcomplicated compared to what they used to be. But maybe that's just an escalation. If everything's on TV, you've got to keep playing that game of can you top this?
Yeah, and I said it last week. Who are they competing against? In general, any company, you don't have to hotshot an angle in this day and age. You can have a Cody Rhodes 2-year story if you want. People are watching no matter what. The thing you have to do is now change some things to get more people talking and saying, you know what? You haven't given it a chance in 20 years, or you haven't watched AEW since the beginning. They're doing something different over there. And they got this MJF thing for the past 6 months, or they got Edge doing this thing for the past 4 months. You guys really need to catch up and check this out. That's what I think needs to be adjusted.
Okay, then. So that is the end of the debate. I say debate. We all agree with each other pretty much the entire way through. So it wasn't much of a debate. But there you go. Hopefully you found that illuminating and exciting. We're going to go into the news now. A few bits we have to do, including what went wrong. We'll save Travis Scott till last, or maybe we might even do it as a YouTube exclusive. I don't know. But I slipped this in sort of last second, actually, Stevie, and I was interested in your thoughts on it, of course. LA Knight, WWE Raw. Instead of me prattling on about what happened, can you, from your perspective, tell us what happened with LA Knight? Man, you got a huge ovation. And then, man, did they let that crowd down by the end of the evening.
I don't understand what happens or what has happened with LA Knight and continues to happen to LA Knight. I won't say with because it's all being done to him. And it just seems like somebody in the office, whether it's Triple H or just anybody, just does not think he can break the glass ceiling. He's over enough to stay over to a certain point, but that's going to run out after a while. If you keep having him fall short, if you keep making him look weak, and then you actually replayed something Bronson Reed did, 3 or 4 months ago with the tsunami splash onto an SUV or a car. I don't understand. I don't know if he's hurt. I hope he's hurt, and that's why they did it. Because any other reason outside being injured and not, being available and having to take time off, they're burying this guy. Why? Is it because do you hold some sort of thing because he's a mix between Rock and Austin with his promos and his mannerisms? Or I don't know. You put him in that tournament and you have him tap out the Gunther clean. Then he comes back and, like you said, he gets a massive ovation even after that. And you just take that away from everybody. And you have, if they don't follow up with LA Knight, like I said before, folding chair outside, arms folded, sits down, and he waits. And that is the entire story for that episode and episodes moving forward. Then I don't know. But there's such a stop-start mentality with LA Knight. Do you think deep down, this is the thing too, he started out with the models. That feels like 1,000 years ago doing the male model thing with T-Bar from Retribution and Mansoor, future WWE champion in WrestleMania 43. But do you think that this is a Zack Ryder thing where he got himself over and they kind of resent him for it?
I wouldn't be surprised. I was wondering if it was an age thing. We think, well, we can't get behind him, too strongly because, he's in his 40s. I remember that being a knock on him 2 years ago. Well, you can't do too much with him. He's 41. Oh, but here's CM Punk. He's 46 at the time coming back.
You can't do too much. You hand him one of these. You give him a microphone. Like, that is the worst. That's just that's like saying, oh, LA Knight's 6'2", but he's not 6'4". Oh, his arms are 20 inches, but they aren't 24-inch pythons, brother. You can figure out any way to keep anybody down as much as you can figure out a way to put CM Punk in the main event. Yeah, dare I say it, I thought LA Knight was in his mid-30s. Like you said, I'm 54, you're not even 40, but this is the new age that's lower. Him being in his early 40s might as well be in his early to mid-30s. It infuriates me that somehow this feels intentional for a talent that has done nothing but get over with whatever you give him. Even the Roman Reigns thing, I thought that was way too early for him. Then whenever you give him the ball, he has a match at WrestleMania with Logan Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
U.S. title match. Incredible match. I've never seen LA Knight have a bad match by any stretch. He does what he does very well. He has a very much a WWE look, a WWE style. He, in essence, in my estimation, he's the perfect mix of everything the WWE wants. So what is it? It has to be somebody. Nah, not over.
Okay, then. So on WWE Raw this past Monday, and it's one of those things that always lets the wind out of everyone's sails. Logan Paul, like Rey Mysterio was coming out for a match. Logan Paul attacks him. And you don't get your Rey Mysterio match for your $1,000, per seat kind of thing, or whatever it might be. Which I always hate, especially when you've only got 4 matches on a card. But the other thing is that, and this is just a booking thing, what was going to be the main event? Unless LA Knight had attacked Logan Paul. What was the main event? Because that was made in an hour into the show. So what are we supposed to assume the main event actually was?
Wait a minute, where have you been for the past however many years?
It doesn't matter. It's just one of them cliches that's always bugged me.
They go, whew, thank God we had a main event. We didn't have one booked up until after Seg 1. Yeah, isn't it something? I don't like that. And especially when you're competing with Monday Night Football, you can offer a bonus match, but you don't say you don't have a main event for the night. You don't have, that's where the story arc of you opening the show, he's saying this, and he goes, by the end of the night, I'm going to do A, B, and C. That's an LA Knight spot to say that's his redemption, to go and try to pick people off, do whatever, side quest, knock somebody out. And then in the main event or the last segment of the show, you finally get to him. Hey, if you want to say something else, hey, you want to say something else about the LA Knight thing, Braun Breaker's in the ring in that last segment and they go to the back. So when you pay your $1,000, you don't even get to see that live. That's up on the Titantron. So why don't you just watch it at home?
1, 2, 3, spear. 1, 2, 3. Man, he was trying. You could see that he was forced to say that over and over again. This is Braun Breaker, and then the video thing happens. He was trying to get that one, chanted by the fans, and that was not happening. And then LA Knight, it's that Simpsons thing you like stop, he's already dead. And then they go back and kill him some more. Why are they?
No, because you can't kill his push right now, but they're sure as hell trying to do it.
Right, okay, right. Here's my idea. I'm going to go back to Jey Uso again. Why go with Jey Uso? For me, is an entrance. LA Knight has more going for him across the board. And I'll tell you what, the best thing about him, obviously, is his promos. I mean, he looks great and everything else. Looks like a star, presents himself like a star. But I like his promos because, if nothing else, they're quick. And they're punching, you've got a catchphrase, and you just get to the next bit. Yeah, done. I like that about him. He's kind of a throwback in that sense. You get the character within 2 minutes. That's all you need.
He proves he's an indictment on everybody else that's trying to be trendy and do these things and just whatever is fashionable for the time. He's a tried and true character that could get over, dare I say it, in any decade, any era. He could be over in the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era. He could be in the Garbage Man and race car driver days. Whatever it might be, he can get over. He can get over in AEW, TNA. I think he can get over anywhere in the world. He did get over in TNA before. You know what it is, too? He's just somebody that can improv. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite promos that I knew this guy was a star. NWA. He came out, talked about his outfit and everything, and then he said something, and he said something like shoes of a champion, and then he stopped and smiled. The crowd, and this is a studio show where they're usually not very loud. They erupted. He smiles. He made a mistake in the promo, ran with it, turned it into a thing, shoes of a champion, and I never forgot it. Instead of saying, hey, can we do that again? Hey, we're live, big guy. Like Jim Ross to Sid.
That was amazing. Okay, right. So I know LA Knight might not be the perfect person to do this with, but I was thinking, well, instead of just murdering... Right, okay, this is the WWE booking. And I think it's... In fairness, I'm going to steal a Brian Alvarez line, but I think he's right. Started with The Rock. They beat The Rock into powder in 2001 throughout the invasion and beyond. They had him lose tons. But he was The Rock. It didn't matter. You can argue the same for Daniel Bryan. They're the outliers. But for whatever reason, they think you have to get sympathy on someone by beating them over the course of months unmercifully. Like, if Travis Scott was made available on DLC without pulling him, that I would have been the character to beat him without mercy for hours on end. It seems the same thing constantly with every babyface they kind of half-heartedly want to push. And I was thinking, if you really want to make a brand new superstar in LA Knight, or quite frankly a few people on the roster, how about LA Knight overcomes the odds week after week after week, and then when all the Vision come in the ring at the same time, he beats them all up. There's your new star. Your new main eventer. And the only person he can't do it with is Brock Lesnar, because he's the only person on the roster who can beat several top main event wrestling stars single-handedly. Do the babyface version of it. It'll be a megastar. Why is this complicated?
I'll give you one better. Yeah, it's not complicated, and that's the thing. They do complicate it. I will say this. The only way you can save LA Knight from this repeated stop-start, beat him down, goes away, doesn't get revenge, like you said, the measured revenge of, you beat me up 3 different times, I'm going to beat all 3 of you up at the same time. He has to win the world title. To some degree, the only way to erase all this and make the struggle and the journey and the pitfalls matter is if you get the ultimate high point. He can't win the US title. He can't win the Intercontinental title. He has to win one of the world titles to make it all worth it and bring it all the way back around. If you say, well, he's not a world champion material, well, I would dare say he carried the TNA title pretty well. I would dare say that anybody can be world champion just if the machine gets behind them. And for some reason, maybe multiple ones in their mind, that machine refuses to get behind him.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you on this, Stevie, with this, as you get up off the seat. You still there? Oh, you are there. Good.
Listen, just like we said in that last segment, wrestlers put a lot of pressure on themselves. They try too hard. I will tell you right now, just sitting here recording, I'm talking with my South Philadelphia Italian hands, I sweat like I'm working out. I sweat like I'm wrestling. I put every I don't know why I put so much physical energy into this, but you
We
inspired me,
do,
James
we do,
Morrell.
we do. Right. Okay. Here's where I disagree with that booking philosophy of giving him the world title. The only way that works, in my mind, fully completely, is if you know in your heart of hearts that the challenger, let's say it's LA Knight, in a fair fight, would beat the champion. Who the hell's the champion? CM Punk. Forget CM Punk.
CM Punk.
Let's say Seth Rollins or Gunther as heel champions. In your heart of hearts right now, is LA Knight booked to the point where you think if it was a one-on-one fair fight with Gunther that LA Knight would win? No. I don't think anyone would think that. You'd probably assume that unless LA Knight squeaked one out and flash pinned, that Gunther would win. And in the example we saw on SmackDown, he did win, clean, with a submission. If you're going to do the thing where you are beaten and beaten, you've got to overcome the odds, you've got to get it in the fans' mind that the babyface wrestler is being held down unfairly, but when the odds are even, he is the better person. And I don't think LA Knight's that person because of the booking.
Well, if that's the case, then you got to give him the consolation world title. Punk is somebody he could beat in a fair fight. Even if Punk was in UFC, looking at the two, I would say LA Knight looks...
I mean pro wrestling. I don't mean a street fight or anything. I'm saying...
It's all the presentation of how you're pushed. Yeah. Dude, I was in Daisy Dukes in a half shirt and people thought I was going to beat Terry Funk for the world title. Come on. You can't get a more ridiculous concept that people actually thought there was a chance maybe I could beat a guy 6'4" with 18 beers in him and a living legend that was wrapped in barbed wire like right out of the womb. You know, I mean, come on. You know, they might not believe it today looking at my body of work after that, but there was a time when they were just like, yeah. Did you get that pun?
Yeah. But that's the point I'm making, is that the booking got you to that point where you were a viable contender. LA Knight.
Yep.
The booking is against him.
Well, once again, that's what I put towards. I put it on creative. I put it on the company. I put it on management. That is somehow, you're talking about the guy's too old. Well, what are you waiting for? Maybe not the world title, but somebody. He broke that that mid to upper, even in the upper main event echelon for a little bit of the time. And I believe he carried his weight with it. He should be in the mix. So, and if you think like Seth Rollins, he has impressive moves, but I would still say it's 50-50. If you think LA Knight or Seth Rollins could beat the other clean, that's 50-50. Gunther's a different story. But then again, they've taken so much away from Gunther. Now, here's who would you believe could beat Gunther clean at WrestleMania? LA Knight or Sami Zayn?
Neither.
Yeah, but Sami Zayn did.
Yeah, I guess so. I just, without squeaking one past them, I don't know. I'm talking about like man on man, not like flash pin or something like that.
Well, Gunther's in a completely different universe of what he's working with and what he's doing with the Cena stuff. I'm talking about LA Knight should be a guy that either has a blood feud personal issue that carries him for a while, or he's got to be fighting for a title because he's the type of character, even as a babyface, dude's there for the money. Dude's a megastar. He's kind of on the cusp of being that tweener, like a Rock and an Austin. That's his presentation. And I believe the hybrid of being between a Rock and an Austin, either consciously or subconsciously, that really does annoy the office and that holds him back. But it's what gets him over.
I don't get it. What is it? Just the Zack Ryder thing that? Well, we didn't tell him to say that, so therefore he
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think LA Knight really did turn around and say, this model thing, I'm not doing it. This is what I need to do. And then they said, okay, here you go. They did the Belt Squad thing. Here you go, pal. And said, let's see if you get over. Secretly hoping maybe he's not going to get over as much as he did. And he did get over. Remember, he was doing like, people say, oh, they always do those dark matches when he did the thing with Hit Row, remember? he got a massive reaction and never made TV. So they didn't expect it. And I believe it's an exact one-to-one analogy. Of course, this dude's got a better push than Zack Ryder and probably making more money than he did back in the day, but he's still falling short of his potential, and they need to get out of their own way.
Absolutely. We're going to save the what went wrong till last because I know you like to do that for technical reasons last.
Turkey likes that.
Turkey does like that. So we're going to go straight to John Cena. Johnny Night Velocity is what I wrote on the format here. And it's a very interesting bit. He's done a ton of interviews. Joe Rogan, Chris Van Vliet, friend of the show, Bill Simmons podcast, everyone in between. He's been all over the place trying to sell some final tickets. And pretty much I think he's managed to do it. But they've also lowered the prices as well for his final match at Saturday night's main event. Now, I'm talking about the guy, Tom Rinaldi. I believe he was formerly with ESPN, now he's with Fox, I guess. I just had to Google it beforehand. One of the most interesting things that he said in that interview, and it made me think of you, as far as that attitude of, I'm going to turn chicken you-know-what into chicken salad. And when John Cena first became the hip-hop guy, the rap, sort of a Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch kind of thing that he was doing, he was then regulated to velocity. And I think, if nothing else, John Cena's got a real can-do attitude because he saw it as an opportunity where others would see it as a demotion. And the way he talked about, velocity is going to be my show then. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to make it my show. I'm going to wrap it all around me. And then they cannot ignore me on the main roster for too long. And it made me think exactly of you doing the exact same thing on Sunday Night Heat, as well as Raven, who voluntarily stayed on Heat because he would have rather been a big fish in a small pond, to use his terminology. But you listened to the interview, what John Cena said. Was that pretty much exactly your attitude, I guess, that his was back in 2002?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is proof that sometimes it works out for you and sometimes it doesn't. So with that being said, yeah, I mean, that's exactly, I had looked at the lay of the land throughout my years before even WWE. I'm looking at it. Anybody that did a job, you've seen it. I talked about it with certain guys on WCW Saturday Night. You would know they were losing just by their demeanor coming out, or if they were winning more specifically, they would be a lot more enthusiastic than when they were doing the job or losing a match. Everybody on Heat always acted like, oh, I got to be on Heat this week, or this is just like, I have heat with the office, or they're taking my push away, or it's all downhill from here. Where when I looked at it, I said, there's an opportunity here. And everybody who was ever on Heat and Velocity would have that subdued, like, I'm being punished, or I'm on the secondary show, or this is just a stop on the way to going back to the show that counts, that kind of thing. Whereas myself, and now watching the interview with John, we looked at it like, if we act like we're supposed to be there and we want to be there and it was our mission and goal to be here, what can you do? Wouldn't you want to look at that and say, well, he wants to be here, so and he wants to wrestle this match on Heat or Velocity. He wants to cut this promo on this show. So therefore, I want to see what he says because that makes me want to watch the show. That was my philosophy, at least.
Did John Cena always have a really good attitude for the most part? Because once again, I've heard quite a lot of stories that it could be difficult to work with at times, but when you and John were on the same brand, which I guess there wasn't too much crossover, but did he always have that overly positive outlook no matter what he was doing or no matter where he was on the card?
Well, I didn't have access to that kind of stuff. Like what he's talking about, he never verbalized it or he's never outward with it. John and I, the only thing I ever did with John was I was a big fan of the First Marine because I saw the trailer so much during the commercial that even in the airport when we were so far apart, and the big joke for like 5 months was I went up to John and then he would come up to me once in a while and he would say, "Hey, Stevie, they have a hostage." I was like, "Oh my God, it's your wife." Or and we're in line at the airport with TSA, and I'd be like, "Hey, John," and this probably wouldn't be smart in the airport. "They have a hostage." Yeah, that wouldn't be smart now that I'm thinking about it. And he'd scream back, "It's my wife." That's my experience with, besides the fact that I got a $500 bonus for getting hit in the back with a chair when we were doing the ECW thing with John Cena when he had the match with Sabu, which, by the way, was an excellent, excellent match with those two.
Mm. Why did you get a $500 bonus for it?
We just got a $500 bonus for getting hit with a chair.
Was that usual?
No, not really. We might have did a great job. I don't know.
I was
Or
thinking,
maybe I just got bonused and PJ and Balls got, shafted on
well,
that.
I was just
Oh,
thinking,
geez,
did he
that's a
like,
pun.
well, I was just thinking, was it because he hit you in the head really hard or something and he felt sorry?
No, hit me in the back.
Huh?
Very safe.
Oh, very good then.
I mean, he wailed me with it. I was just like, oh, geez.
Right then.
Maybe the way I sold it, Vince thought I was hurt.
I was going to say, yeah, I thought maybe the bonus you just like for medical expenses or something. Here's some bandage money.
What do you do? How do you go? You go to the ER. Oh, my God, I wouldn't live it down. Oh, yeah, I heard you went to the ER. Hey, heard you went to the ER with a back injury, with a chair shot. Yeah. Smart ass sissy.
Here's 500. Turkey likes that. Turkey likes what went wrong as well. So I'm going to ask you, Stevie, to queue up one of the weirdest what went wrongs that we've seen in a long time. It's kind of the Lex Luger thing with Roadblock from 30 years ago that went really, really right. Now you got really purple when that screen came up as well. I've got to mention. Anyway, Dragon Lee, WWE Raw, trying his darndest to pick up Ivar of the War Raiders. Why, I don't know. It didn't work out. So, Stevie, over to you. Tell us what went wrong.
All right. Thank you very much, James. And I would say that thoughts and prayers go out to Dragon Lee, because my lower back, my disc is about to slip out and touch the nerve just watching this before it even happens. So let's take a look as he picks him up. Yeah, what we're seeing right now, he had him though, right here. But what happens is he starts to lose his balance. And what I believe, Ivar is he's a big dude. He's a very nice guy too at the same time. But what's happening here is when he picks him up, the squat up is good, but he starts fluttering his legs. Then what happens is, do you see the weight shift back towards here? In other words, if the weight was just like that, he pretty much did a dead squat with the dude that weighs 350 pounds. That's very impressive. But what happens is when he squats up, he has him. Then that foot goes back. Ivar keeps his body weight and his back going towards the ropes, which causes the fall. You see right there? His body already started to go down like that behind Dragon Lee's back, and he lost him. Dude, he could have blew his back out right there. They both could have been hurt. Little bounce into the ropes too. You have any questions as far as that so far?
Yeah, why did he then try and do it 2 more times?
Because this is a wrestling 101 mistake. If you mess a spot up, by the way, the first one is perfect. You know why? Nobody's hurt, hopefully physically, but the match isn't hurt. You know why? It proves that Ivar is every bit as big as he looks on TV, hard to pick up, and Dragon Lee could have established, say, for example, people keep trying to pick up Ivar like this and can't pick him up, fall down. He crushes them. He falls on top of them. Then guess what happens? Brock Lesnar picks him up and gives him an F5. It doesn't make it even more impressive when it finally happens, or Brock can't pick him up at first. Second, third, fourth time, gets him F5, and it's like, that gets Ivar's size over. But here, I mean, he still didn't get him up, right? So he picks him up here. Look, his weight's already taking him back. That happened the first time. This part here, is he trying to give him like the future shock, like the Chris Sabin move?
It's like a Death Valley
where
Driver or
Fireman's
something.
carries into a Michinoku?
Yeah.
What's he even trying to do? Oh, God. Ugh. Look at I got my shocked look on that. Now he's over rotated that way like he's given like an attitude adjustment where everybody got an attitude adjustment. This is one of those things just like Dragon Lee and AJ. We talked about the finish last week of what went right. You know, it got tons of views. But we're looking at that. Their strength is in basically the very fast Motor City machine guns type double team moves, right? Why are you putting a pound? Now, I think AJ could have picked him up. AJ's jacked, man. He could probably, but he shouldn't because it's not what gets their tag team over. So I don't know why he tried it, except, you know what'd be cool? It didn't turn out so cool for Dragon Lee. And I think, dude, 3 times of doing this might not be a sell right here, right there, his back injury. So what say you?
Then after this, which isn't in the video, Dragon Lee is then going on the offensive like he hit the move. It's like...
So Ivar's selling like he got the move done to him, and Dragon Lee is fresher after 3 botches.
Yeah, just play it through the last few seconds there and just see how much Ivar is helping.
Well, I know what happened there.
Yeah, he went too quickly that time.
He didn't. All right, Dragon Lee squatted. Ivar didn't squat. Ivar just kind of threw his body over his shoulders. Do you notice that?
Yeah, fireman carried himself.
In other words, there needed to be a pause here. Dragon Lee needed to be stood up, hook him, then put him kind of on there and squat. By the way, he power squatted him the first time, essentially doing like Wendler 531 and maxed out. And then he tried to use accessory work or go for what we call the Joker sets, where you increase by 5 or 10 pounds to, basically max out on that little bodybuilding or powerlifting there. But Ivar jumped onto him. You see that? And then the momentum took him over.
So, do you think this is purely an ego thing, or do you think WWE wrestlers now, like, the matches are so rigid that, like, as you were saying with the promos, you left out an and a the. Do you think it was just like, no, you have to have this move or else we can't continue with this match?
No, absolutely. I think for a fact this was maybe even the referee saying, do it again, get it right. It's about getting the spot in and not just going and saying, here we are, let's just go ahead. In other words, there was a spot or something after this. If Dragon Lee was still acting like he hit the move, then the move was important to keep wrestling by numbers. And this was spot H, and we were supposed to go to I, J, K. And without doing this, it ruins all that. And dare I say it didn't ruin anything. It could have got Ivar's size over. But we can't call audibles because, like I said, with my Performance Center weekly coaching thing and going to an NXT house show, I got to be in the microphone and tell them, do this, do it again, go to the next move, do it again, go to the next move. That's where we're at.
Okay, let's say he pulls it off first time, whatever he was going to do. Dragon Lee's 5'6". What is he even... In the context of the story of the match, it makes no sense for him to attempt it. So why would he? Because in storyline, once again, I don't know how big Ivar actually is. He's billed at 350. He may be that weight. He's probably a bit lighter than that. Why would you do a power spot with somebody who's literally more than twice your size? It doesn't fit Dragon Lee's character.
Could we back up just a second here and talk about the War Raiders? Whatever they're calling them now. They got a vignette or something that they're coming back. Their first match back in many, many months. You don't give them locals. You don't get them over. You bring them back, and then you have somebody in a spot trying to lift them up and not make them special. A guy who's 5'6", 185 pounds, and they do the job. So you're talking about LA Knight. What are they doing with these guys? And why are they allowing a spot where a guy who's 5'6", This is the same thing as that spot that we talked about where they dive onto everybody, or the dives in general. Dragon Lee's perfect for the dive. He did it last week with the finish. But this is a power move that Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, more powerful tag team wrestlers should be doing. In other words, nobody should really be taking Ivar off his feet in general. But here we are, somebody dead squatting a guy and he's every bit of 350, if not more. He's a pretty tall guy, and he's a big dude. I don't know, man. I don't know why they overcomplicate and don't have the characters according to their size and their skill set and their move set stay within the lanes that keep them over. It's mystifying.
Should we do the Lex Luger thing, or should we save that for next week? Because we're already at nearly 3 hours.
Let's save it for next week.
Okay, then. So we've got a what went right.
That was what you wanted.
Yes, I did frame that as in I'm done. But we need to do a little YouTube exclusive afterwards, which we're going to be talking about Travis Scott, which you probably know about because Travis Scott clip will come out before this full episode. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching us. We're going to be remaining out, apart from next week, every Friday. Now, I'm going to explain what's going to happen next week. Next week, we're going to have a new episode for you on Monday, and that's because we're going to be recording on a Sunday and then releasing on a Monday for Saturday night's main event, John Cena's final match. The other times we've done reviews for shows, we've done 2 episodes a week, but because of Christmas happening very soon, and we're kind of like doubling down on work anyway, we can't do 2 shows in 1 week for that week. So,
and plus I have to reconfigure the studio.
Yes, exactly. That gets in the way of reconfiguring time. So, we're going to have a brand new episode for you on Monday, which is going to be the John Cena special, I guess, or the Saturday night's main event special, plus whatever news comes out of that episode. And then we will be going back to our regularly scheduled programming of a new episode of the Stevie Richards Show every single Friday. But fret not, there will be fresh clips on the YouTube channel every single day throughout Christmas and throughout the new year as well. So, the last thing to be said, really, and it's over to Stevie to thank the Patreon supporters. So what say you, Stevie?
What I say is, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody here on YouTube for subscribing. We recently surpassed 154,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for that. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, clicking the bell to get notified. And of course, we have patreon.com/Stevie Richards. We just talked about the watch along we did. Watch alongs every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time here in the States. Show notes every Wednesday. So as we record this, Patreon people are already commenting on the show notes and giving their thoughts. Every Friday morning is the show before the show, the pre-show where we talk about everything, including reconfiguring the studio. So that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching episode 75 of the Stevie Richards Show. Join us for a special Saturday's main event review show. Is that going to be episode 76?
It will.
James?
Yeah.
Okay, so join us for episode 76. The giant Juan Cena is coming back with a mask.
Spanish brother.
Yes, he'll be coming back with a mask and a sombrero after this, after he loses to Gunther. That's my prediction right there. Thank you so much for watching episode 75 of the Stevie Richards Show. See you very soon, actually in a few days, for episode 76. And you can't me. How's that?